All right, folks. Hope everybody can hear me. Um, this was a completely impromptu live stream. I'm going to be over the next few minutes trying to get these things tweeted out. If you could please help me out, because this is, I'll explain to everybody in a minute. I was actually in the middle of recording the podcast that was set to be released today, which it will be released today, but I'm going to have to record the whole thing uh, fresh because this news broke that KADYN Proctor will be announcing in moments, in about 15 minutes. And so you got to do what you got to do. I had to get here and get this live stream going. So there are some behind the scenes things that that I have to take care of here. So please stick right here, hang tight. You being on here helps this stream in the algorithm, but please share this on social media. We're going to be following this announcement here. I know that people don't like to follow the rules. If you could please, when we hit 1 o'clock and the announcement comes in on social media, there is a slight delay at times with the live stream. Please don't spoil it for people. I know that that doesn't always work with people, but please don't do that if you could. Again, please help out by sharing this stream out on social media. Again, the news we have right now is that KADYN Proctor will be announcing his decision at 1 p.m. Central Time today, so that's about 15 minutes from now. Again, I have not had time to really do anything as it relates to sharing this, so let me go ahead and pull this up. As a reminder, on the bottom ticker there, please share this out on social media if you could, please. If you could hit the like button as well. I know we got 68 people in here so far. Please all hit the like button. Again, this is a big day for Hawkeye Nation, and possibly the biggest recruiting win in the history of Iowa football. That's not hyperbole. I mean, you could argue it, I guess, depending on position. I know he's a tackle. The guy's a top 5 player nationally. This is one of, if not the biggest days in Iowa football recruiting history. So help me out, because I am trying my best to give you live coverage and reaction as we find out the decision from Mr. KADYN Proctor. So I'm going to swing over to Twitter myself here and try to possibly I'm getting, when it rains, it pours, folks. There's a reports now about that just broke moments ago about, well, I'll just, let's just throw this up here. So this is a developing story as well. So this just broke seconds ago. According to a source, USC and UCLA are planning to leave for the Big Ten as early as 2024. The move has not been finalized at the highest levels of power. This information, according to John Wilner, I have Wilmer. Wilner and John Wilner. He is a reporter for the Pac-12. I don't know a ton about John Wilner. I know he's got 32,000 followers on Twitter. But this is according to John Wilner. So, again, when it rains, it pours, folks. We're waiting for an announcement from KADYN Proctor in moments from now. Again, please share this out on social media if you could. And I am going to share this one more time out here. Be right back. Hold on just a second. It was the one and only Mark Rogers giving me a quick call. So, again, I'm going to get this shared. If you have any, I see everybody in the chat already active, which is great. I love this. This is a great tweet from Brandon. Let's remember this kid is a 17-year-old kid, right? I think he's probably 17. So whatever he decides, it will be a blow if he doesn't pick Iowa. I get that. But let's just remember that he's still a young man, And let's just try to respect that. I hope I'm not falling. I hope that doesn't fall on deaf ears. But please do your best to respect that. Okay. Again, we've got about 106 people on here now. And again, I'm working on getting this. I know it takes a while, folks. So welcome to my life here. I'm trying to get this shared out on social media the best I can. And again, you can help me by doing the same thing. Continue. Just this is going to be a busy day, I guess. It's been a slow week after the Trevor Lauk decision. It's been a slow week, but this is the news that we got today as we're awaiting KADyn Proctor's decision. USC and UCLA are planning to leave the Big Ten as early as 2024. The move has not been finalized at the highest levels of power, according to John Wilner, who is a college football reporter. But that is the news as I continue to try to get this information out here for folks to let people know we are live. And again, thank you if you've already shared this stream out on social media. That helps a lot. Appreciate that. Again, we are awaiting decision in just minutes from KADyn Proctor, and I'm prepared to open the call line once that time comes, but I've not had a chance to get all that set up yet. We hope it's good news. I hope it's a good news. I'm a homer, right? I'm not going to deny that. Iowa, we know it down to Iowa and Alabama. Okay, got that shared. Again, excuse me for doing all this while we're on the air. This is not how I like to operate, but you got to do what you got to do. And I will say this: I did extend an invitation to KADyn Proctor's stepdad that I'm sure he's going to be bombarded with interview requests, but he's more than welcome to come on this show. I would love to speak with KADyn, regardless of the decision, and just get an idea of the decision-making process. Now, I do get the feel that KADyn Proctor is a bit of a quiet guy, which is fine, but would have no problem having. I would love to have KADyn Proctor on. So if you're I'm sure nobody in KADYN's family is watching this stream, but if for some reason they are, please feel free to reach out. You know how to reach me. And again, if you're just tuning in, I'm just trying to get this information shared out on social media. Caden didn't give us a a real great warning, so that's his prerogative. But I'm just glad I was not in a meeting. I had an interview scheduled. Oh, that's not good. I'll just say this: I had an interview scheduled with an Iowa basketball player, and I had to cancel that interview because of this news. So I was again. I'm just thankful that that we're live and that this all worked out. But again, we're waiting a decision from the one and only KADyn Proctor, 5-star kid out of Southeast Polk, and nothing new as far as where he's announcing this. I'm assuming he's announcing this via Twitter. I'm scrolling through in a panic, trying to get an idea of where he's announcing, but I don't believe he's stated this. And unless we have somebody, okay, Brandon says he thinks local TV is covering it. And Bryce, the announcement's not going to. He's not making the announcement on this show. I just want to clear that up, and that's why I put in the title here that this is live reaction. So I, like I said before, I invited KADYN Proctor on this show. He's got bigger fish to fry than me in this show, but did invite him and his family on if they choose to come on following their announcement, regardless of the decision. But we are awaiting a decision from KADYN Proctor here in approximately 6 minutes, and we'll be taking calls. I'll open the call line after the announcement is made. I'm sorry, I'm missing a lot of comments here in the chat. Apologize for that. But again, this news, KADYN Proctor tweeted this out at 12:01. So he actually did give me more of a heads up than I thought. The problem was I was already in the middle of recording the podcast that was set to be released today. Thank you again for this super chat from Bryce. I saw Brandon's comment that possibly a local TV station is covering the announcement. I have not gotten wind of that. That may be true, but have not heard anything about that. And of course, he's a Central Iowa kid, so I will run over to KCCI real quick. I'm not seeing anything on KCCI. If somebody knows where this announcement is happening, other than just Twitter, please let me know. Appreciate everybody being here. If you're just joining us, please help by hitting the like button. Please subscribe while you're here. Iowa content, college football content throughout the offseason, college basketball as well, and even a little bit of college baseball in the spring. You can donate to the channel in the description below. It's always appreciated. But please, right now, it would help if you'd share this out on social media. We got a few minutes left until he makes this decision. And as has been reminded and hit on several times, thank you, Erica, for this. Remember to hit the like button. Please be respectful of the decision. Please be respectful of the decision. That's all I can say, because I don't think he's really tipped his cap to anybody. I have not heard anybody go on the record and say, yeah, he's a Hawkeye, or yeah, he's a member of the Crimson Tide. I do think he's a Hawkeye. I've been on the record and said that I think he's going to commit to Iowa in 3 minutes, but I'm not going to assume that, because he's a young man, and there's certainly some tantalizing features of Nick Saban in Alabama. There's no question about it. So again, continue to follow this storyline. And we are just about 2.5 minutes away from presumably hearing a decision from KADYN Proctor, 5-star recruit out of Southeast Polk, tackle, would I believe, I think the highest rated recruit in Iowa history. And again, I am here to give you the announcement once I hear it. You certainly have access to social media. You're here on YouTube, but I'm going to open up the call lines. Hopefully we're excited, excuse me. And Ravens fans 618, thoughts on USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. Initial thoughts are wow, especially given the alliance I'm assuming that alliance is starting to go by the wayside. I don't even know what the alliance really did. It hasn't done anything. So we'll talk about that today as well. I have a feeling this is going to be a busier afternoon than I anticipated. I had some other things on the schedule today, but when something like this happens, you do what you got to do. Okay, about 1 minute away, folks, according to what I've got. About 1 minute away. And again, thank you to everybody who is here. About 240 people on right now. Appreciate the activity. And I promise to go back and try to hit some of these comments later. But John, I don't know where it's being streamed. I don't know that there is. And I would think we'd have known this by now if it was being streamed live somewhere. Lee wants Caden Proctor to stay home. This announcement, Robert, just broke from College Football Reporter. We'll talk about the USC UCLA announcement here in a bit. But yes, we are waiting any second now, folks. Any second now. An announcement from Caden Proctor. And the announcement is, folks, he is a Hawkeye. Official Caden Proctor commits to Iowa, the 5-star recruit, highest rated recruit in Iowa history. Caden Proctor commits to the Iowa Hawkeyes. And getting this banner up. Believe me, I'm excited, folks. I'm just have to get this on a banner so we can actually talk about it. It's official. Iowa football lands 5-star offensive tackle Caden Proctor. All right. I'm at a loss here, folks. Let me. I'll go ahead and what I'll do is for you that don't have Twitter, I'll go ahead and share my screen so you can see the official announcement from Mr. Proctor. And hopefully you can see that. Let me get this down. He says, been a long time coming. The wait is over. Hawkeye Nation, you got my everything from the first day I get there. Let's work. I am home. You see the graphic here from Hayes Fawcett, who does a tremendous work with On3. And the message, let me get to his custom message here. Hopefully you can read that. If you cannot, let me see if I can get... that's not going to help. This will help a little bit. All right, here's the message. First off, I would like to thank God for blessing me with the life I was given, for the talents that have been bestowed upon me. Without him, I would be nobody. I never thought that I would be in this position that I am today, and most know that. I'm so thankful for my parents and guardians who have been giving me advice and shown me perspective throughout my choice. Next, I would like to thank Coach Z, Cochran, Vander Sanden, Meyer, Hendrickson, and all the rest of the coaches who have pushed me to be the greatest human being that I can be and also give me the tools to succeed at the next level. Next, would like to give thanks to my trainer, Ryan Smith, who has not only given me the opportunity to be around him in his training facility, but around his family, meeting new people from around different schools in Iowa. He has taught me that doing things with a purpose and intent is the greatest way of getting to that next step in succession. Lastly, my girlfriend, Sydney, who has been there not only for the support of my games, but outside of football, when sometimes at this stage, football players can have a different mental than the normal person. A bit of a typo there. She has never failed to make me happy and is my safe place. With that being said, I would like to further my football and academic career at the University of Iowa. I'm staying home. Caden Proctor. But we go ahead and retweet that. There we go. All right. Well, what a day, folks. Again, this just in, if you're just joining us, first of all, where have you been, if that's the case? If you're just joining us, the breaking news at this hour is that 5-star offensive tackle Caden Proctor has committed to Iowa's class of 2023. And by all metrics out there, this is the biggest commitment in Iowa football history. Yes, Xavier Wampas was huge. by the numbers, Caden Proctor is a higher ranked kid. Different class, different position, but he's a more sought after recruit. They both could have basically picked their school. Caden Proctor obviously could have, did, right? He narrowed it down to Iowa and one other school, and that was the top school in the country. All right, let me open the chat here. Open the phone lines. So give me just a second here to get this set up because it does take me a moment, and I promise we're going to get to your calls, get to your chats. I'm going to get back in the chat so we can discuss this at length. Okay, I think we're good on that front. I think we're good on this front. All right. Let me throw up the number here. If you're new to the show, 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. That's the number to discuss the breaking news. Caden Proctor committing to be an Iowa Hawkeye on this Thursday, just a few days after his official visit to Iowa City. He makes his announcement known in the middle of a Thursday afternoon. How about that? All right. So there's our number, 515-635-1601. Let's get to our first call of the day. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Nobody can hear me. Hopefully, we got our call line working. So it's working on my end, folks. So, yeah, if you tried to call in just a second ago, call back. The number is at the bottom ticker here, 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. Erica, do you guys realize that we just beat Bama at something? OMG, I'm so happy and excited. Let's go. Absolutely. And I did not do. All right. Got that taken care of as well. No, the call line should be working. So if you're wanting to get on here to chat about this development, all right, we got our caller calling back. Let's see if we can get our caller to work this time. Caller, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
How's it going? Thanks for calling the show.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing all right. I was wondering if you wanted if there were like any other like Pac-12 or ACC schools that you're looking at the Big Ten adding.
Pac-12 or so you're responding to the USC UCLA news. I mean,
yeah.
I would think that, again, not even looking at geographics, obviously you'd love to add an Oregon, right? I think if you're the Big Ten and you want two schools from the South, the Pac-12 South, two schools from the Pac-12 North, then yeah, Oregon, Washington, maybe. I don't know what the mindset of the Big Ten is. Again, this just broke, so I haven't really had time to think about it. But obviously Notre Dame has been on Iowa's radar for a long time. Notre Dame may end up being, I don't know what the future is for Notre Dame because they've been able to get away with not being in a conference for so long. You just wonder if with the changing landscape of college football, if they're going to have to join one of these super conferences, because that's what the Big Ten is looking to do. They're looking to rival what the SEC is doing. So Notre Dame would certainly still be on my list, but certainly Oregon and Washington. And I don't know about the ACC. I don't think Florida State or Clemson are probably in play. I don't really think that Pitt moves the needle. So I would probably stick with those three.
Yeah, I think North Carolina would be great, but I don't know if you could get North Carolina without Duke, and I don't think Duke would really fit in the Big Ten. But yeah, I agree with what you said.
Well, Duke would fit in the Big Ten like Rutgers fits in the Big Ten. I mean,
yeah.
the difference is Duke really does move the needle with basketball, and I know it's a football centric discussion, but when you have a program like Duke from a basketball perspective, I don't know. It's kind of like adding Kansas. Those rumors were circulating a year ago that Kansas was looking to jump to the Big Ten. And, you kind of look at the pros and cons of that. Certainly they're a dumpster fire on the football field, but they do move the needle so much with basketball that perhaps it's worth taking that. And let's be honest, Rutgers doesn't really move the needle with any sport, although they're respectable in basketball. They're not a blue blood. So, in hindsight, the Rutgers and Maryland is not the same basketball program they were 10, 15 years ago. So both of those schools, if you could trade out a couple schools, I'd trade Kansas and Duke for Maryland, Rutgers, but that's hindsight.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
Appreciate the call, man.
Yep.
Take care. Good stuff. And yeah, we can talk KADyn Proctor. We can talk about the breaking news, or the report, I should say. According to a source, USC and UCLA are planning to leave the Big Ten as early as 2024. The move has not been finalized at the highest levels of power, according to John Wilner, who is a college football reporter for the Pac-12. My understanding of this. Let's get to our next caller. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's Alan. How are you from North Carolina? What's going on?
How's it going, Alan? What do you think of that last caller wanting North Carolina to join the Big Ten?
I actually heard some speculation down here that North Carolina wants to get out of the ACC.
Yeah.
For football. We're talking about football. There's talk that they want to get out. So it would make sense. And as the caller just mentioned, it would only make sense for them if they could bring Duke with them. But I don't know if Duke is a big name football-wise. It's absolutely not. But basketball-wise, especially maybe without Krzyzewski, it's not as big a cachet, but they still have one of the best programs in the country. So, but it definitely makes sense for North Carolina to get out of the ACC and come to the Big Ten. I know there's talk of them getting out of the ACC down here.
Well, I just pointed out to our previous caller, and I'm sure you maybe called in to talk more Proctor, but as I mentioned to our previous caller, this is just a sign that alliance, in my opinion, that alliance is a total flop. There really is no alliance, and I think that was more just to save face in the moment until these moves could actually be made. And now that the reports are circulating, we look back and it's like, okay, that was sort of a just maybe not from the Pac-12's perspective, but I think from the Big Ten's perspective, that was just sort of a stopgap. And this was the end goal. And I don't know. I don't think adding USC and UCLA as they are currently constructed puts them on an even close to an even playing field with the SEC. However, the potential with those two schools we know is great. Lincoln Riley now at USC and Caleb Williams is their quarterback. UCLA is a sleeping giant. I know that it's been a long time since the Bruins have been relevant, but it does help the cause. And then if you can use this as momentum to add an Oregon or to add, I don't know what Notre Dame's mindset is moving forward, but if you can add a couple more, yeah, you're looking at least being able to rival the SEC and have those two super conferences.
Definitely makes sense. As far as Proctor is concerned, it's just a phenomenal day for the program. George Barnett, he must be gleaming with the commitments of both him and Lauk. I think I sense this, especially after last night when Tarek committed to Wisconsin. I had a feeling it was either Tarek or it was Proctor, and I thought Proctor was the guy. The only thing that I have a question now coming out of this is knowing the type of talent they have on this offensive line. And after listening to your interview with Marco Lainez, I'm actually going to go watch. I have family up in New York, so I'm going to go see Iowa Rutgers in September. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. Is there any way a move like this can allow this program to bring in some receivers? I mean, their receiving recruits have been absolutely horrible. I mean, besides Murray, besides Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce, there is nobody in the horizon, and there's no one coming in the next couple of years that really changes momentum of this team just being a mediocre offensive team. Can a move like this really propel them to get someone of substance to play on the outside?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you brought up the fact that we cannot overlook Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce, because those two guys, I mean, I know Keegan Johnson, I think from all metrics was high sites that I'm aware of was a higher rated recruit than Bruce. Both those guys have potential, and those guys are just two freshmen last year. So
yeah,
sky's the limit for both of them. That's a good core. You lose Charlie Jones, who I do believe was Iowa's most complete receiver. I know people want to argue that, but I do believe he was Iowa's most complete receiver, and they're losing him. Nico Reganey this year, we know he's, I think, got 1 year left. I don't know. Maybe he's got 2 years with the COVID exemption. But, yeah, they got to land somebody. They've got a kid coming onto campus this September. I saw that reported by Blair Sanderson of Rivals, wide receiver from the Midwest somewhere. But no, I think they realize at this point with Jerron Tibbs going to Purdue, they lost out on Casper to Oregon, as you all know. They've got other guys with offers out there, but yeah, you're right. I mean, wide receiver recruiting has been the biggest struggle. Frankly, they've struggled at tight end, but I don't think anybody worries about that because they know how well Iowa develops that position. They don't develop wide receivers very well.
They do not. And one final question, as far as like when it comes to Linez and the way the program is built, do you think there's any chance if he wows them that he could start as a freshman?
Oh, yes. No, absolutely.
Okay.
I've said that several times. I think he's going to start as a true freshman next year. We're talking about, you said Caden. You're talking about KADyn Proctor, correct?
No, I'm talking about Linez.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Proctor.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, Proctor's going to start.
Okay.
And I think Lauk's going to start on the other side. But as far as Linez, just do you think there's any chance that he can start as a freshman?
No.
And that's the problem. Because if you look around the country and you look at all these big programs, they're getting freshmen to start right away. And is it because the coaching staff thinks these guys need 2 to 3 years to get the whole playbook under wraps? That's what I don't understand. If Linez is the best person for the job, why not start him right away? And that's what frustrates me about Ferentz and his son. I mean, I don't honestly. I know I've heard some really good stuff from about Petrus at the Manning camp, but we all know that Petrus is a limited talent. But as far as Linez, and I've seen him firsthand. I actually went to a game up in Princeton to see him at the Hun School. That kid's ready next year to start. Do you see there's any chance that he's going to play right away?
No. No, I don't. Now, listen, that has nothing to do with what I want. That just has to do, you're asking me if I think he will, and the answer to that question is no. If Kirk Ferentz is the head coach here, I do not see him starting any true freshman quarterback.
No. Okay.
Now here's the deal. If there's any minute chance that happens, it would be if Marco Linez enrolls early. He has to enroll early to play in 2023. And I know he said on the interview, the show with me a couple weeks ago, that he is planning on discussing that and considering that. I think he's I mean, he's got time to make those decisions and work that out. But he's not going to play if, like, Carson May enrolled, a couple weeks ago? Like, even if Petrus weren't here, there's just no way that Kirk Ferentz is playing a guy who has had a couple months to learn the offense. And I think the offense is I think Iowa complicates things far more than they need to. I'm not the only person that thinks that. But the fact of the matter is, the only chance that he would have, I think you would need a lot of attrition, which means Petrus would need to move on, because Petrus could come back next year. We got to remember that. Petrus could come back for 2023. He would need to move on. And you'd probably need to deal with an injury or two, because I just don't see Kirk. He would really have to go against the grain of what his philosophy has been since he's been the head coach here.
Well, I appreciate everything that you do with the program in terms of the coverage. And this is just one of those days that Iowa fans will look back at and say, this is a changing moment for the program, for a kid to stay home and pick Iowa over Alabama. It's something I never thought in my lifetime I'd see. So it's a phenomenal moment for the program. And I'm excited about what he's going to do next year when he gets here. And thanks for everything, Kerry.
Appreciate it, Alan. Have a great day. And yeah, great stuff. I mean, good questions. I know that, a couple people in the chat are frustrated because we're not talking about Proctor. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, and people are just amped up for Iowa football, and I get that. So, again, thank you for being here. We got 189 people. I'm going to open the line back up. So it is up and running, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. And yes, I'm going to try to get back to your comments in the chat that I've missed. Hawkeye Basson, thank you for this. USC seems like a very odd fit. The money and prestige is there, though. So stoked about KP. Love the pipeline we've created at Southeast Polk. And for that matter, as great as Southeast Polk football has been, Iowa's done pretty well in the Metro in general. Now, they did lose out on Urbandale's Kai Black. They lost out on Jamison Patton, a defensive back to Iowa State. However, they have done well at Southeast Polk. They've done well at Des Moines North with Devin Hilson and most recently David Kalker for the 23 class. So they're still doing well in the state of Iowa. Iowa State is both these schools right now are dominating the state of Iowa. They're keeping talent in the state, and that hasn't always been the case. So I give credit to Iowa and Iowa State both. A lot of new people in the chat. Good to see everybody here. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Hair Trigger 83 says the Big Ten is going to end up with teams all over the country. Going to be interesting for sure. JT, we need to stay east of the Missouri River. Too much travel time for the Big Ten. I don't know how much travel time is much of a concern anymore, JT. I don't know that you can get more travel than USC and UCLA. Matthew Akers. I don't know what this means. I don't foresee Caden Proctor getting rolled by Ohio State every year. And if you're not forgetting, Matthew, the last time Iowa and Ohio State played, you just, I guess, maybe Google it. I won't bore you with those facts. Hugo Main says, how do you guys see this helping Petrus? The answer is I don't see this helping Petrus because unless Petrus comes back for 2023, and then, yeah, sure. I mean, we can connect the dots and say that Proctor's commitment does directly help Petrus because he'll be his offensive tackle, but we don't know that. Certainly he's not going to help anything this year. I don't think Proctor committing moves the needle at the offensive line spot this year in any way. But yeah, certainly. I mean, I know a lot of Iowa fans don't want Spencer to come back for 2023. Let's just wait and see what 2022 holds at the quarterback position. I don't have a ton of confidence either. But certainly the quarterback position is in better hands now than it was a few weeks ago because they've gotten a 4- and 5-star offensive tackle, 4- and 5-star offensive tackles, plural, in Trevor Lauk and now Caden Proctor. So just having that offensive line support, which Iowa has not had, and yes, they're prospects. They've got to develop still. I mean, Proctor is as complete of an offensive tackle as you're going to get, but still, there's going to be a bit of a learning curve when you head to college. That's just the case with a young man, but I do think he'll start right away, and Iowa's done a very nice job on the recruiting trail, and I don't think they're done, by the way. Let's remember this, folks. They've got Logan Howland, a 6'7", 280-pound offensive tackle, who's a teammate of Marco Linez. He was on campus this past weekend. He's down to a Final Four schools of Iowa, Oklahoma, Miami, and Michigan, and I've heard nothing but good things. We'll see, but I don't think Proctor's commitment necessarily means I guarantee you, folks, they're not retracting the offer to Logan Howland. They're just not. And he's another big kid. He played tight end at Hunt School. He's got another year in front of him, but he's still on their board. Chris Terek is off the board, went to Wisconsin, but I guess my point is they've done a nice job on the recruiting trail with offensive line support. They seem to be eager to get bigger across the board because not all these guys can play on the outside. So some of them are going to have to move in or switch positions. And I foresee a lot of these guys moving inside. And if that's the case, you may have bookend tackles of 6'7", 6'8", and then on the inside, 6'4", 6'6", 6'5" at center. I mean, Leighton Jones, the Indianapolis guy, defensive lineman who is coming here to play center in a year, he's like 6'5". He's a big guy. He's not Austin Blythe. He's a pretty tall guy. So they got Logan Jones, who switched positions this year, but they seem to want to get bigger. They've not really went on the record and said that, but their recruiting seems to indicate to me that they're and I'm not saying their primary evaluating method is based on size, but certainly I think some of it is. That's been proven by some of these recent commitments. Now you're going to take KADyn Proctor regardless of your philosophy because he's the best offensive tackle in the country. But the rest of these guys, I mean, you got the kid from, we're not even talking about the kid from Illinois, Cannon Leonard, who's 6'9". Lee says this recruiting class is going to make Kirk's offensive coordinator look real good. Well, they still got to produce, right, Lee? But you're right. You got to give Brian Ferentz some credit here. Do we know what the significance of Brian Ferentz recruiting these guys, specifically Proctor and Lauk? Do we really know how involved Brian was? No, I can't tell you how involved he was, but he is the offensive coordinator. It's a fair point from Lee. And let's remember this too. Brian Ferentz is a former offensive lineman. So George Barnett is the position coach. I've heard nothing but good things about George Barnett on the recruiting front and from the coaching standpoint. I think they're in good hands there. But you've got George Barnett as the position coach. Your head coach is a former offensive line guru. And then you've got Brian Ferentz, who's a former offensive lineman. So I don't think it hurts anything. And perhaps you can attribute it to the collective trio of the two Ferentzes and Barnett. And we've ripped Ferentz. We've given Brian Ferentz criticism, I think fair at times. And I think here he deserves to get credit. He deserves some credit. If we're going to extrapolate and say that Iowa's struggles on the ground or Iowa's struggles through the air are due to Brian Ferentz and play calling these things, fine. But let's also give him credit when this program is recruiting well on the offensive side of things. From a coaching perspective, they have to get better. We know that because the results have not been there. And they produced solid offensive linemen. I mean, think about Tristan Wirfs and Brandon Scherf and Tyler Linderbaum. They produced superstars at these positions. What they haven't been able to do is be elite across the board in quite some time. 2016, they won the Moore Award. That was not a very good offensive line. That was a ridiculous award. I hate to say that. There were good pieces of that line. I believe Austin Blythe graduated in 15. That was not a great line. Ike Betger was a solid tackle. He's carved it out, a nice little career with the Bills in the NFL. But my point is, this is going to be, as far as potential, one of the most talented offensive line rooms that I can remember under Kirk Ferentz, at least in the last 10 years. Jennifer and Dusty, sorry that we're late to notifying you of this. KADyn Proctor is a Hawkeye, so if you missed that decision, he is a Hawkeye. Murillo Family Fishing says that caller earlier that didn't say anything must have been Nick Saban speechless. I love it. Yeah, the news here, if you're just joining us, KADyn Proctor is a Hawkeye, 5-star offensive tackle out of Southeast Polk, standing at about 6'8", 335 pounds. He is huge. He is one of the highest rated football players in the country for 23. We're not just talking about offensive line play. We're talking about football players. And Kevin Perkins, recognize Kevin Perkins, stepdad of KADyn Proctor. At least he was in the chat a little bit ago. Congratulations, Kevin, and to your family on this momentous day. It's certainly a day that you will always remember. So enjoy the day, Kevin, and tell Caden to enjoy the day because, it's going to be a fun following few years. And again, just congratulations to your whole family. John Burnett says, what are your thoughts on everything going down today? The Proctor decision and the USC UCLA news. It's a lot. I haven't really compartmentalized it yet, John. The KADyn Proctor decision is massive, although I had predicted this several weeks ago that I thought Proctor was a Hawkeye. It was kind of a seesaw type of recruitment, at least in my mind, because I felt good towards the end of 2021. You have the Wampa commitment. Certainly is going to make you feel better about his teammate Proctor being a Hawkeye. And then he schedules these visits, and there's no official visit to Iowa, and you start to speculate, does that mean anything? I mean, he's been to Iowa a million times on unofficials, but does this mean anything? and then he cancels, and then he schedules a visit, and you feel better. So I've felt good for a couple weeks now that Kaden Proctor was a Hawkeye. And so the UCLA, USC news, we're going to be talking about that for a long time, because that's not reportedly happening until 2024. So we've got 2 more years of college football before we even presumably welcoming those 2 teams to the Big Ten. Looking through the chat, and again, I know I missed some comments earlier. Tom brings up Tyler Barnes. Let's give a shout out to Tyler Barnes, because he's one guy I didn't just mention. We were talking about Caden's recruitment and talking about Lauk's recruitment and what Iowa's done. And let's not forget what Iowa's done at running back. That might be the one position I'm most excited about. Yeah, it's a skill position player. It's more of a flashy position. But when you have guys like Kendrick Raphael and Jazian Patterson and Caleb Johnson, those are 3 4-star kids in 2 recruiting classes, and they run differently than Iowa's. They are different types of backs than Iowa has had in recent time. I've brought up the word tweener. Maybe that's the wrong word. I've used that word with Coach Don Patterson before, and he doesn't correct me on it. But those are more your prototypical Wisconsin backs, right? Or your backs like Mo Ibrahim at Minnesota. I look at Kendrick Raphael, I look at Caleb Johnson, I look at Jazian Patterson. They're guys who can break tackles. They're guys who can cut. There's guys who can slash. These guys are going to be exactly what Iowa needs along that offensive line, or running behind that offensive line, in my opinion. Now, they got to prove it on the field. But from a recruiting standpoint, you got to give Liddell Betts, Tyler Barnes, Brian Ferentz credit right now, because they're recruiting those positions well. That doesn't mean they're recruiting every position well. They've got to do better at wide receiver. They've got to land another wide receiver. They got Alex Mota in the 23 class. They got to land somebody else. And they lose Charlie Jones. That just put the onus that much more so on Kelton Copeland and that wide receiver room. Oh, big mistake. Alabama would have almost guaranteed an NFL career. Yeah, big mistake, Bubba Joe. Big mistake. Big mistake. D-Dubs has goosebumps. Feels the momentum. NFL and college sports talk is here. Barbara's here. Charles is here. Casey's here. David's here. Jennifer's here. Good to see all these new faces. Some of these faces I don't recognize. Ann is here. Mark. A lot of new faces. The Kaiser's history. Good to see you here. Go Hawks. The news at this hour. KADYN Proctor is a Hawkeye. Southeast Polk 5-star offensive tackle. Can you imagine him playing tight end? Offensive tackle selects the Iowa Hawkeyes over Alabama and basically any other school he would have chosen. But his final 2 were Iowa and Alabama. But he could have went anywhere in the country. There's no question about it. The other news at this hour is the news about USC and UCLA reportedly planning to leave for the Big Ten as early as 2024. As early as, folks. So that doesn't even guarantee that 2024 will be the year, right? But according to John Wildner, who's a Pac-12 reporter, the move has not been finalized at the highest levels of power. But that's their plan, reportedly. Okay. If I missed you earlier in the chat, I'm sorry. Ravens fan, hopefully I answered your question regarding the USC UCLA news. Thank you for this, Brandon. I wouldn't say I'm the hardest working Iowa fan, but I appreciate you saying this. Yakov 22, good question. Have I ever been to Southeast Polk High School? The answer to that question is no, I haven't. And I plan on making it down this fall. No question about it. I plan on making it down this fall. Now that Proctor is official, I plan on making it down. Robert says, I wasn't thrilled when Maryland and Rutgers came to the Big Ten, but I would be thrilled to see UCLA and USC join. It would change the dynamics of the conference. I mean, certainly it helps the conference from a perception standpoint and a competitive standpoint, but it changes the conference. And I still want to take time to really think about this, mull this over before I dive deep into at least what the implications are from my vantage point. I like Iowa football, says Yakov 22. However, I think it's uncommon for any player to choose between Alabama and Iowa. That's an understatement. Thank you for this, Brandon. Appreciate this. Jason, thank you. Andy, Good to see you here as well. Patrick, as we usher in this new era with NIL and million-dollar deals, I trust in our staff's ability to recruit our own backyard. This could be huge for Iowa. And there were rumors that Iowa was able to filter in a deal for Proctor on the NIL front, but that's just hearsay. I'm not nothing official. I'm able to confirm that, but that's a rumor that's been out there and talked about. So how much of his decision was based upon NIL? I don't have the answer to that, but I would presume that there is something on the NIL front for Caden Proctor here, something very significant. Chris says, how many 5-star recruits has Iowa ever had? That's a good question, Chris. And I think the answer to your question is very few. Now, keep in mind, recruiting rankings have not been around all that long. Let me see if I can find something for you according to Rivals. I've looked this up before. So, according to 247 Sports, I'm going to look at 247 Sports. The highest rated recruit in Iowa history was Caden Proctor. And it's really not that close, although Kyle Williams was a 5-star recruit for that class of 2024. And if you don't know the story behind Kyle Williams, a very sad story, but he was a very highly touted kid. AJ Epinesa, according to 247 Sports, was a 5-star. Tony Moyaki was a 5-star. Blake Larson, who ended up, I don't want to call him a bust. I believe last check he was a police officer down in the Kansas City area. He was a 5-star recruit, according to 247 Sports. Matt Roth was a 5-star. Dan Doring was a 5-star. Dace Richardson was a 5-star. So according to 247 Sports, Iowa has had 8 5-star recruits, but a couple of these guys haven't worked out. Certainly AJ Epinesa did. Certainly Tony Moyaki did. Matt Roth did. Dace Richardson did. But there's never a guarantee. Proctor's still got to come here and prove it. But Proctor is, I think by most metrics, most sites, is the highest rated recruit that Iowa has ever landed. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. Again, I'm quoting that from 247 Sports. All right, the number to give to call in at this hour. Man, I'm having a hard time with my graphics today, folks. The number is 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. The call line is open right now if you want to call in. And I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything real notable. Again, I apologize if I missed your comment at some point today. Got 200 people on the show right now, so appreciate everyone who has been here. D-Dub doesn't want UCLA or USC in the Big Ten. Would love to have you give me a call, D-Dub, and explain why. Maybe that's him now. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
This is Alex from Cedar Rapids.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
Good. I'm actually at work. I'm at work when the news broke, so had to take a quick break just to have a call in quick.
Okay.
So, you may have touched on this. I have a desk, but I'm not always at it, so I was able to see the news, but then I had to step away. So I don't know if you touched on this. Not necessarily with Caden Proctor, but with UCLA and USC joining the Big Ten here in the possibly the next couple of years, do you think the Big Ten will do away with the divisions, kind of like what the ACC did, or do you think they'll try to keep the divisions and maybe just reformat them?
Well, from everything I've been told, and Mark Rogers is certainly a better resource than I am on the national front. Everything I've been told, it looks like it looks like the Big Ten was planning on doing away with the divisions anyways. So I don't know that the USC UCLA decision affects that. That's the trend right now. We saw what the Pac-12 did recently. We know what the ACC is doing. I think that the Big Ten will likely end up with out divisions. I don't think that helps Iowa. I mean, it certainly doesn't help Iowa. If you're looking at it from a division and conference championship standpoint, it does not help Iowa. It's going to make it much more difficult for Iowa to not only win the West, but win a Big Ten championship.
Oh, yeah. I think no matter what happens out of that, if they do like the similar style of the ACC where it's 3-5-5. I think Iowa, regardless of who the three they go against, is just always going to be behind the eight ball a little bit. And maybe one last thing.
Sure.
I guess I had a question on Kaden Proctor. Is this an official sign or is this just a verbal commit?
No, he's got to sign in December. So this is just a verbal commit.
Okay. So he can change his mind, not to,
Sure.
Put strike fear or make everyone kind of like clinch a little bit, but he can change his mind, correct?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, unless he's got some NIL contract behind the scenes that we don't know about, but that's just speculation. No, this is just a commit. This means nothing. I mean, guys flip all the time. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that he will do that. 99% of guys, well, I shouldn't say 99% of guys. It's probably like 95% of guys stick with their original commitment. And certainly him being an in-state kid, I would seriously doubt. I think something big would have to happen. I mean, if Kirk Ferentz announces tomorrow that he's retiring, maybe that makes him rethink his decision. But I think that's very, very unlikely. I think, again, we'll feel a lot better in December when he signs during the early period. But, yeah, we'll have to wait a few months.
And one thing that was the other question. Is he obviously he's going to sign early. I didn't know if he was going to come on campus early, but, then I start thinking about injuries, I knock on wood that he stays healthy throughout his senior year of football, but I actually got to get back to work, but thanks for taking my quick call.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate the call. And those are all good questions. I don't know if he'll enroll early. I mean, my guess is that he might, right? Wampa did. I mean, Proctor's ready. I don't know. It would probably do him well to enroll early if he can. It's not always that simple. Can he or can't he? I mean, there's other, or will he or won't he? There are other factors at play. But my guess is that he probably would enroll early. You get him and Linez enrolled early together. Maybe you get Kendrick Raphael there. We got let's see. I'm trying to think of the song. It's an 80s song. Don't tell me. Never gonna give Rick Astley. It's Rick Astley. Okay, that was what the caller wanted to do. So thank you, caller, for Rick. That's a great song. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Thank you to our caller. Call line is back open. 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. You want to call in and play some music or whatever. Hopefully that doesn't get flagged by YouTube. Let's see if I'm missing. I know I'm missing a ton of comments from people in the chat. So JT brings this up that Iowa just moved from 22 to 15 in the 23 class. I'm being a little underranked, quite frankly. And usually I'm saying the opposite. Usually I say that, like the 24 class, Iowa has been like top 5 for quite some time. I don't know if they still are, but it's way too early to look at it in that light. I do think that Iowa's 23 class, without even really examining other classes in depth, I do think with the skill position talent that they're bringing in with Linez and Kendrick Raphael, and now with Proctor and Lauk, boy, that's what a strong start offensively. You can get a wide receiver, so it's going to be tough though, man. They really don't have a ton of guys left on the wide receiver front that I have a ton of confidence in right now, ending up at Iowa. But there's still time. It's still fairly early in the recruiting process for 23. We got several months before the early signing period, and things can always happen into January as well. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
This is Christopher from Cedar Rapids.
Hey, Christopher. How are you?
Good, you?
I'm doing fantastic, and so is Rick Astley.
Yeah, I've been keeping up with the Proctor thing. My dad, when he heard Alabama, Iowa, he's like, "Oh, it'll be Alabama. It normally is, anyways." But then I told him this morning, I was like, "I'll keep you updated because if you see all these text messages that I'm like freaking out, you know why?"
Absolutely, and I'm sure he's a happy man.
Yeah, he's always. He's not like a pessimist, but he's 60 years old, so he's seen these recruits that have like flipped, or that have like, have come to Iowa and just have like been botched and stuff. So, but Do you think that with you have my question up on screen now? This is actually CJ, but I go by Christopher.
Okay.
Do you think that Ferentz might decide to hang it up earlier since he, because I know he hated playing like in Arizona and stuff. When back in the day, remember when they had like the home and home or whatever with like when they played like Nick Foles, and I remember them asking him about it, and he said that he didn't really like traveling out west. So now that USC and UCLA, because Pete Thamel on Twitter just announced that they're going to have a press conference in the next 24 hours, that it's done. So do you think that with everything like that, do you think that he's deciding to hang it up earlier now?
That's a great question. I doubt it. I don't know how much Ferentz has left in the tank in general. I know the report right before the Big Ten championship game last December, I believe it was Scott Docterman that reported that Kirk had told his guys that he was planning on being here for years to come. And I don't think that would change. I think Kirk is a man of his word. I doubt he's going to just hang it up because a couple of West Coast teams are added. Remember, they can't play everybody, Christopher. So you're right. He doesn't like going to the West Coast, but he's not going to have a choice now. The Big Ten's going to schedule what the Big Ten's going to schedule. And I don't think Kirk is a dummy. He's not a dummy. He could have seen this coming. I think a lot of people saw this coming even a year ago. There was talks about this happening quite a while back. So I doubt it. The way Iowa's recruiting right now, and the fact that Iowa's offense hasn't taken a step to where it would be conducive to be able to give Brian the kind of pass the torch to Brian. I think they need a few more years of Kirk. If there's any chance of Brian taking over the program, which you have to think that's what Kirk Ferentz wants, they need to utilize the recruiting momentum that they've got right now and somehow get this offense to be good, because it's not even close to being good right now. So if he retires in a year, it's going to throw a wrench into the Ferentz plan.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that likes to look way ahead, and I saw like a 2024 mark of Connor Colby, like top 15, and I was just thinking that like if this plays out the way it could play out, Iowa could have like four first-round picks on the offensive line like next year.
A 2024 mock. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, like I said before, I mean, we're not even taking into account David Kov. I think Iowa thinks very highly of Logan Jones at center. They wouldn't have moved him if they hadn't. I mean, let's remember what they did with Tyler Linderbaum, moving him to the offensive to center from the defensive line. So, you're right. Personnel-wise, I've never doubted, even before this recruiting push. If you watched me last fall, Christopher, you would know that I said last fall, I like the personnel they have along the offensive line. And since then, they've landed Trevor Lauk, KADYN Proctor, and 6'9" Cannon Leonard. So, yeah, I'm confident with personnel, and maybe in a couple of years we'll be looking back and thinking, wow, this was the shift of the philosophy of starting to recruit these bigger offensive linemen that can kind of be plug and plays all across, whether we're talking the interior or the outside. These are guys that can make us collectively better, because Iowa hasn't had very good offensive lines. I mean, there's that perception nationally that Iowa's just, run the ball down your throat. That's just not what they do. They try, but they don't do it well. And now they've got an opportunity to potentially do it well because they've got the personnel to fit the system, what Kirk Ferentz wants to run.
Yeah, and I find it funny. I laugh at Iowa State and Nebraska fans because I remember them telling Iowa fans like 3 or 4 years ago that, Nebraska and Iowa State are about to out-recruit Iowa because of these young coaches. And now Kirk Ferentz is in like his, 23rd year, and he's still dropping bombs and stuff. So
he's doing, yeah. No, and frankly, it's a bit surprising too because of NIL changing things. I mean, they've been able to do this despite this NIL era that is in full flux. So you got to give credit where credit is due, and I give this entire staff credit, and ultimately it falls back on Kirk Ferentz.
Yeah, and then last thing, just kind of a meme. Did you see on Twitter that Sidelights Twitter account that he keeps posting? So anytime an Iowa State player has committed, they would jump Iowa in the 2023 rankings, and he goes, it's a cyclone state, and literally the day he posts it's a cyclone state, an Iowa player would commit and they would jump Iowa State.
I did
He's done it
see
3
that.
times now.
I did.
He did
see
that last night.
Did they do it last night?
Yeah, because they had either last night or this morning, and Iowa State fans are like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" They're like, "Just wait till 1 p." Even Iowa State fans were like, "You should not have posted that."
Just shut up. Yeah, I
because he
love
did
it.
that. I think he did it the day before Lauk committed,
Yes,
and then he did it the day before
Raphael.
the 6'9" guy committed last week.
I think he did it before Raphael as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I did see that. I got a kick out of it.
So, well, I have to go to work. So nice talking to you.
Appreciate it, Christopher. Thanks for calling in. And good stuff from Christopher in Cedar Rapids. The call line is back open, 515-635-1601. Kevin Perkins, stepdad to the one and only Caden Proctor. He says, I think I speak for all the family when I say we couldn't be any more proud of him. And certainly Hawkeye Nation is happy to welcome what sounds like a tremendous young man and certainly a tremendous football player into the Hawkeye family. And so, again, congratulations to Caden and the whole family. I see a question in the chat from Paul. Thank you again, Kevin, for being here. Paul says, which offensive lineman will hit the transfer portal? And which tackles will hit the transfer portal? Paul, I had the same, I'll be honest, I was right there with you a week ago. And I was thinking to myself, okay, there's just no way they can have 8 guys who are tackles. I mean, these guys aren't going to just stick around forever because only 2 tackles can play. But I think we have to adjust our thinking a bit, and I'm having to do that. I think we're having to realize that Iowa may be changing its mindset. We have not seen Iowa put out a really large, as far as size, really big offensive line across the board in a long time. Even some of Iowa's better offensive lines of the past 10 years have not been that big. You compare them to Minnesota and Wisconsin, they have been really small collectively. Now, you do have exceptions. You guys like Alaric Jackson and Tristan Wirfs, those guys were big. Those were 300-plus pound guys. But they have not had huge lines across the board. And it doesn't seem like, and I've heard Kirk Ferentz ask this very question, it doesn't seem like that's a priority to get bigger or that it's been a priority to get bigger. What he's focused on is we want the right guys regardless of size. If they're bigger, they're bigger. If they're not, they're not. But we don't believe that size is everything as it relates to the offensive line. And I get that philosophy, but I do see a change in philosophy on the recruiting trail because, again, just looking at the guys they had in campus this weekend, Caden Proctor, 6'7", 6'8", 335. Trevor Lauk, 6'6", 287. Logan Howland, 6'7", 280. Cannon Leonard committed a couple weeks ago. He's 6'9". They have Cale Crow from just south of me here in Story County. He's 6'7". Jack Dotzler, 6'7". So I do want, maybe that's a coincidence. They just happen to be targeting these guys who are bigger. Maybe that's not aimed. Maybe that's not a part of the evaluation process. I'm guessing it is. I don't think that's probably a coincidence. So, Paul, I think there's an opportunity. I think there's a possibility that Iowa is just telling these kids, look, we're going to play the best 5. And that will also help from a standpoint of not losing guys to the portal, right? Because guys believe, hey, I don't have to beat out. I don't have to win one of 2 jobs. I have to win one of 4, right? Not a big example. Maybe one of 5, right? But likely one of 4 between the 2 tackle positions and 2 guard spots. That's how I look at it. I think some of these guys will end up playing guard. Honestly, Trevor Lauk, I could see him playing guard. He's 6'6", 287. The way he's made up, the more I've thought about it, maybe he'll end up playing guard. But again, they have options. I don't see Cannon Leonard playing guard at 6'9". If he grows another inch or 2, no, I don't see him playing guard. Caden Proctor's not playing guard. But there are guys who Connor Colby, I thought he was a tackle heading here. He's played guard. He's played guard year 1, and I think he's going to play guard year 2. So I don't know if guys will leave. They're not going to leave now, Paul, because Mason Richmond, Jack Plum's going to be gone by then anyways. But right now their tackles are Mason Richmond, Jack Plum, Nick DeYoung. They've got Justin Britt on the inside along with Connor Colby. Logan Jones, Michael Myslinski, these guys who are trying to sort out playing time and snaps. That's too far down the road to really project. And some of these guys still have to develop. Proctor is not a project. Proctor's going to play from day one. I have confidence in that. But like Cale Crow and Jack Dotzler, those guys are there now, but they're true freshmen, did not enroll early. Those guys are probably projects. It's probably going to take them a couple of years. And that's okay. But they'll likely redshirt. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that question, Paul, but I get your line of thinking. Clay, 4-star and 5-star offensive tackles in just 1 week. Kuz from Kuz's Corner. Good to see you here, sir. Thank you for the congratulations. Always good to see Kuz. And if you've not already subscribed to Kuz's Corner, he does some great stuff, not only on the West Virginia front, but college football. So get it over to Kuz's Corner and subscribe to Kuz over at Kuz's Corner. Blake Morris is here. Good to see you, Blake. ZJ. Spark CW wants to see Iowa beat Caleb Williams every year. I don't think Caleb Williams will be there, will he? Caleb Williams will probably be gone by 2024, Spark CW. Now, maybe he won't, but I would not be surprised if he's gone. Blake, that is the report right now that USC and UCLA are planning to join the Big Ten in the coming years. We'll see when that happens, but that is the report right now. Kevin Perkins, the stepdad of Caden Proctor, says that we are looking forward to being a big part of the Hawkeye family, and the Hawkeye family is looking forward to you guys being a part of the family as well. JT says Xavier makes it sound like Proctor made his decision last season. Interesting. I have not been on Twitter, so if anybody's on Twitter looking at these tweets, you're filling me in right now. Robert Kublik. Besides Petrus improving mentally, I think the physicality we showed in the bowl game is a step in the right direction. Certainly along that offensive line and at running back, I think that's probably what you're referring to, Robert, as it relates to physicality. Now, Kentucky was down some of their starters, especially on defense, but that does not mean that Iowa didn't improve from during bowl prep. We hear that every year, that Kirk really values bowl prep. And look, these guys got a regular spring. They're taking part in strength and conditioning this summer. So, no, there's no question about it. There's no question about it. I think physicality along that offensive line is big. Strength, technique, all that is important. That will help quarterback play. If you can run the football well, I know we've said that a million times, but if Iowa can run the football well, it will help Spencer Petras. Regardless of the jump Spencer has made, it will help immensely. Spark CW, get Proctor on the show. We need a Proctor interview. I don't know Caden Proctor. I saw Kevin, his stepdad, in the chat. I told Kevin Caden is welcome to come on the show, but I'm not going to pressure him. He seems like the guy announced on Twitter. He's a 5-star kid, top 5 kid nationally. He announced on Twitter. My guess is the fanfare might not be Caden Proctor's thing. But again, to Caden's family, you're welcome to come on the show. Caden's welcome to come on the show. Would love to talk to him. Just hit me up. I'll even throw up my email on the bottom ticker here. From the eye of the storm at outlook.com. Or you can message me through Twitter or whatever else. But Caden Proctor is more than welcome on the show. Eric is excited about Alex Mota, the athleticism and the speed on the outside. They're fortunate to have Alex Mota because of the struggles recruiting that position. They are fortunate to have Alex Mota right now. John says, why do you think the sudden jump in offensive line size? I think Barnett plays a role, or he's asking the question, do you think Barnett plays a role in that? Ferentz nearing his end, maybe wanting for more already developed offensive line recruits. John, I mentioned that earlier. I do think you got to give Barnett a lot of credit, but perhaps it's an acknowledgement that, hey, we've got to get bigger, because right now that what we're running with this zone run scheme is just not working. That doesn't mean you're going to abandon the zone scheme, but perhaps you need bigger guys to run that system. I'm not an offensive line guru. I remember having this discussion with Don Patterson a while back, and I don't know the answer to that question. I think Don's a great I hope to have Don on. I'll just say that. I hope we can get Don on the show, because he'll give a great perspective into recruiting philosophy specifically with offensive linemen, even though he never coached that position specifically. I just can't answer that question fully. Let's get to our next caller. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Lance Helton.
Hey, Lance. How are you?
Good. Hey, I was just I had one quick question, and I'll hang up and get your response for it. But I know we've lost Charlie Jones to the transfer portal. He was the Tim Dwight, so to speak, for our team. Who do you see as rising up to take his spot? Thanks.
Appreciate the call, Lance. Good question. I talked about this before. I do think Charlie Jones was Iowa's most complete wide receiver. There's a lot of Iowa fans that don't like me saying that. They believe that's I think a lot of Iowa fans are just bitter about it, and I get it. Losing another guy to Purdue. They've lost Tracy to Purdue. They've lost David Bell to Purdue. They've lost now they lose Charlie Jones to Purdue. The guys that obviously you'd expect, the biggest guy is Keegan Johnson, because from what I was told, Charlie Jones was probably the most consistent deep threat on the team this past spring. And so obviously Keegan Johnson showed flashes of that last year. So he's got to step up. Nico Regani's got to be more consistent. He dropped a lot of balls last year. Arlen Bruce is an intriguing guy at 5'10". Can he develop into a poor man's Rondale Moore? That's a possibility. But I'd put the onus on a guy like Keegan Johnson to make a big jump. This is his second spring that he's competed in. He's got to make a jump. And like I say, Regani's got to be better. Brody Brecht, we'll see how much he plays. He's a bigger guy. They lack size on the outside. Maybe he gets some playing time. Star pitcher for Iowa baseball, but he's also a wide receiver on the football team from Ankeny. Can he step up? They've got a kid coming in, Jacob Bostic from, I believe, Palestine, Illinois. Those guys are going to have a shot. I mean, they're just going to, because they're not real deep at that position. When you lose maybe your best player, it gives the opportunity for other guys to step up. No question about it. Good question, though. Great. Appreciate you calling in, Lance. Somehow it sent me way down in the chat. Okay. Jeff says it feels like I was trying to become a strong ground and pound team, which they've wanted to do for years. Let's just acknowledge that. They don't need high talent wide receivers that way. Wisconsin, for the most part, has not had elite wide receiver play. They've had good ones at times, but you're right. They've had really good running backs, strong offensive lines, and it's put a lot less pressure on their wide receivers and their quarterbacks. And they've had good tight ends, but Iowa has good tight ends as well. Jeff says defenses are geared to stop spread passing teams. Fair point. I do believe that play calling is a factor here. I think we have to realize that not everybody is going to be able to run. Not everybody's going to be able to have the talent in the backfield that Wisconsin has on a year in and year out basis. So even though I'm encouraged by what Iowa's doing on the recruiting trail at running back and certainly along the offensive line, I don't expect Iowa to just start producing Melvin Gordons and James Whites and Agumba Walles and, I mean, all of these guys year after year after Jonathan Taylor's. You're not going to get that. So I do believe that Iowa has to be able to become less predictable. I don't think you can just run your head against the wall like Iowa tries to do year in and year out and try to win games like Wisconsin does. Wisconsin get away with it because they've got elite play. I think the one thing about Wisconsin is the moment they don't have really good running back play, and we saw that last year, not last year, but the year previous. So the 2020 year during the pandemic, as we know, Wisconsin struggled throughout that entire year, right? Now, they dealt with COVID issues. I get that. They certainly dealt with COVID problems at quarterback. But at running back, they struggled, losing Jonathan Taylor. It was just a weird year for them, and you saw a bit of a chink in the armor. Last year, they bounced back, had a much better year with a young Braylon Allen, and I think they're in good hands with him for the next couple of years. But you can have the best offensive line in the world, but you're not going to be elite without really good running back play. And Iowa's proven that as well. You really can't have one without the other. You can be good at times, but you're not going to be elite without really good offensive line play, really good running back play. Jay is here. Go Hawks. Bradley is here as well. Good to see you, Bradley. Hawkeye Howard's going to Apologize for that. Don't know what happened there. Bit of a glitch in the StreamYard system. Hopefully I'm back and you're still here. Appreciate Hawkeye Howard being here. John Nestor says, what are your thoughts on the class overall? I'm assuming you're talking about the 23 class. We can take a look at the class. Why don't we do that? See if I can find the commitment list here. I'll share this on the screen for everybody, and we can kind of break this down. Again, none of this is scripted, folks. Just so everybody's aware, I was recording the podcast that was set to be released this evening, and as I was recording, I finished up, and then I looked on Twitter, and I saw that KADYN Proctor was announcing at 1, and so I said, well, that show is obsolete. And that's the truth. That show's obsolete now. Let me see if I can pull up this list and share it on the screen here. But a good question from John. All right, so let me get rid of my picture. Here's what we got, folks. KADYN Proctor, we know, a 5-star recruit committing to the Hawkeyes today. This according to 247 Sports. This is a up-to-date commitment list for the 23 class. Highest rated recruit in the state, according to 247 Sports, the second highest rated offensive tackle nationally. I would maybe argue that, but I know that not all sites agree. But he is considered a 5-star recruit and the highest rated recruit in Iowa history. Kendrick Raphael, the second highest rated recruit in this class, the Florida running back that committed just weeks ago, who I think has got a very bright future. And then you've got Trevor Lauk, the big offensive tackle from Indianapolis, who's a 4-star kid. Maybe he ends up moving inside. Maybe he stays at tackle and ends up being a bookend line with or creating a pair of bookends with KADYN Proctor moving forward. Marco Lainez, 3-star, but he was a 4-star at one time. Everybody knows how high I am on Marco. If you missed the show with Marco Lainez from a couple weeks ago, right here on this channel, From the Hawkeye of the Storm, you can also find From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Spotify, Anchor, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast. But Marco Lainez is a very well-spoken young man, and I think the future face of the Iowa football program. Alex Moda, another kid we interviewed here on the show, very athletic, very fast. He's actually a dual-threat quarterback in high school. Iowa needs him because they're struggling at the wide receiver position. Leighton Jones, he is actually a defensive lineman that's being switched over to play center at Iowa. At 6'4", 250 pounds. So Iowa obviously sees something in him they like as it relates to center play. Chase Brackney, good get for Iowa as well here. He plays at the same high school that Alex Padilla did at a high school from Cherry Creek, Inglewood, Colorado. At 6'4", he's a D-end. Ben Queter. I hope I'm pronouncing Ben's name correct. I've never met Ben. I'd love to have Ben on the show. Need to reach out to him. 3-star recruit, linebacker out of Iowa City, so a hometown kid. And these are always the ones that seem to come out of nowhere and surprise you and end up being stars. You think about guys like Josue Jewell, who's a Decorah native, ends up being a superstar linebacker at Iowa. Maddox Borcherding Johnson, Norwalk kid, another small-town Iowa kid. Defensive lineman at 6'3", 270 pounds. John Nestor, defensive back from Chicago. He committed as well. Aiden Hall from Harlan. Harlan, Iowa has a lot of rich high school football history. Zach Lutmer, he was also on campus this past weekend, despite having already committed. 3-star athlete out of Rock Rapids, Iowa. David Kalker, mentioned him from Des Moines North. Reminds me a bit of Chauncey Golston with his size and how he plays. Maybe a little under-recruited. And then Cannon Leonard, the big 6'9" offensive tackle from Iroquois West in Gilman, Illinois, not far from Champaign. His brother is actually an athlete on the Illinois football team, I believe. So that's what the recruiting class looks like as of right now. I will say this, if you're looking at the recruiting class as a whole, it ranks, I believe now we can pull up the rankings, but somebody noted this earlier that Iowa right now is ranked number 15 in the country, according to 247 Sports. They need help at wide receiver, John. That's where I'd say The biggest need is they need to get a tight end, but I'm less concerned about tight end because they develop guys. They've got a grad transfer coming in this year, Steven Stilianos, who will help immediately. He's got 2 years of eligibility remaining. So that gives you a little bit of breathing room because you've got Sam Laporta, who's here this year. You've got Luke Lachey, who presumably will be here for a couple more years. And then you've got, what's his face? Steven Stilianos from Lafayette, who's got 2 years. So that gives you time to develop the guys you've got this year coming in. Addison Estringa, Cale Vanderbush, but they need to get somebody on the trail. So it'd be wide receiver and tight end are the 2 biggest needs, in my opinion. They did so well at defensive back this past class. They want to get some defensive linemen. Kendrick Gilbert's got Iowa in his top 4. So they've got work to do, but we're only in June. They've got time. And I still think we're going to get a few more commitments from this past class. Or excuse me, from this past weekend. Nathan is bummed that the USC-UCLA moves possibly ruin the old school Rose Bowl affiliations. But that's where we're headed. You're right, Nathan. That's been where we've been headed for quite some time. And I apologize. I can't get any chats from before Nathan's chat. For some reason, StreamYard had a glitch, and I'm not able to access it. So if I missed your chat earlier, it's nothing personal. Nolan says, what does Mark Rogers think about this news? I have not been able to talk to Mark about this news. So I'll be anxious to get in touch with him here in a little bit. I know he'll probably be doing a live show at some point soon if he's not already. And Nathan brings up, imagine this conference for basketball. Yeah, good point. UCLA's been high right as of late, as has USC. So you're right. And imagine adding North Carolina and Duke. You're talking about, no question, the best conference in the country as it relates to basketball. But we know football is king. So we'll see what happens. Nolan says, what does Mark think about the Proctor news? I spoke with him for just a couple moments before. Well, I was already actually live, and he gave me a call. So I haven't been able to really talk with him. But I'm sure he's happy for Iowa fans. He deals with Iowa fans a lot on his show over at Iowa, the Voice of College Football. So I'm sure he's stoked about it. Blake says, how can Iowa switch the narrative about wide receiver recruiting? Well, I'll tell you, Blake. If Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce can make, even if it's just across the conference storylines, actually make an impact where people are talking about them, that helps. If Spencer Petras can throw the ball better, if Brian Ferentz can call better plays on offense, I know I'm simplifying this, but that's what it comes down to. Iowa's passing game needs to be more effective and more efficient. The fact that Iowa, I think, will take more shots downfield this year, I think that's a given. I think Brian Ferentz realizes, I think Kirk and Brian both realize they have to change things up. And I think the one way you probably do that is by taking more shots down the field, becoming less predictable, which they need to do. I don't know that it'll always work. We'll have to wait and see. But I think those things will help. Right now, there's no reason for a wide receiver. I hate to say this, but there's no reason for a talented wide receiver to pick Iowa over Purdue. Unless you just want to fall back on culture, and I get that. But if you're trying to go to the next level, make your name known. You look at what Purdue's produced, Rondell Moore, David Bell. Who has Iowa produced that's been an NFL talent? Amir Smith-Marset so far has made it to some degree with the Vikings, but that's about it. And, we'll see if he can stick with Minnesota. But that's what they got to do. But you better be happy they landed Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce. Those 2 guys. Imagine if you didn't land those 2. Now they would have landed somebody else. But no, that's been the biggest struggle, that position, recruiting wise. And before it was running back. So there's no reason to think Kelton Copeland can't change the narrative here. And perhaps the Proctor commitment, along with Lauk and along with these different guys, certainly that will help momentum on the recruiting trail. I'm a wide receiver right now. I'm thinking, well, I don't love the direction of the Iowa offense, but I do recognize the status of the program, that you've got a coach who's been under fire, right? I think rightfully so, and Brian Ferentz. There's more pressure on him to, like I said, throw the ball more. And now you've got a situation where you've just got one commitment for the 23 class. So especially if you're kind of a receiver that's flying under the radar, but maybe has that potential, I'd consider Iowa. Why not? Perhaps there'll be a shift to some extent from the recruiting, from the offensive standpoint. My number to call in here, 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. Bradley, thank you for the super sticker, Bradley. Appreciate that. And he adds a super chat. So thank you, Bradley, for both of those. And he says, I hope with all these recruits the last couple of years that our coaching staff migrates into playing the best player at all positions, no matter what year the kid is. What are your thoughts? He's done that for the most part. I mean, even AJ Epinesa, it wasn't a starter early, but he played really early, as did Tristan Wirfs and Alaric Jackson both. So it's not that he's not willing to play young guys. They do that at defensive back a lot, especially at corner. We see true freshmen play at corner. We see young guys play at running back. We saw Tyler Goodson play as a freshman at running back. But I think it's a different conversation when you're looking at quarterback. And I don't know if that's what you were referring to, Bradley, but Iowa's system is just too complex. They've made it too complex. It doesn't need to be that complex, but it is. And I do think that needs to change. Hopefully they're trying to simplify things, but there's no question about it. The coaching staff does need to simplify things so that they can feel more comfortable with playing a guy like Marco Lainez his freshman year potentially. But we don't know who knows what Joey Labus and Alex Padilla are doing. Maybe Marco Lainez gets here and he redshirts and Joey Labus sets the world on fire. We don't know. I haven't seen Joey Labus on the football field. So we just don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But good question, Bradley. I'm with you. I think a lot of Iowa fans want to see younger guys play, especially when you have struggles at positions with older guys. Like, Jack Plum struggled a lot last year. Spencer Petrie struggled a lot last year. Those are prime examples. Jeff brings up the good point. Commits can back out. So Iowa still has to continue to recruit guys like KADYN Proctor. John says, is this class on pace to be the best one ever? I don't have the answer to that, John, because I don't even know. I'm sure they have those rankings out here according to Rivals and 247 Sports. But I don't know how to access that. I don't know. Great question. That would be a good, maybe a good topic for a future video, John. John Schaffen. John D. Schaffen. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, John. Does Proctor committing give Kyler Casper pause? Those two with Xavier seem buddy-buddy. Well, the answer to that question is, I think, a pretty strong no, John, would be my guess. Again, I don't have any intel. Not spoken with Kevin or Kyler about his decision to go to Oregon. But, you hear rumors that the Nike lure and NIL was a big factor there. So that, this doesn't change that. And I think my guess is that Kyler thought there was a pretty good possibility that Proctor would end up here anyways. I don't know that Kyler ever really thought Proctor was going to Oregon. So my guess is it does not, but you're right. I mean, you never know. I guess guys we just brought it up with Proctor. He could decommit if he wanted to. So I guess Kyler could decommit, but I seriously doubt that happens. Blake says, is Iowa O-line and DBU pretty close right now, especially with what they're doing. I mean, they've been developing guys and NFL players, and now you're talking about having guys some of these guys, you can argue Proctor's NFL ready right now. So boy, that moves the needle, doesn't it? Iowa has not had as much success with offensive line recruiting as they have with defensive backs. Certainly, some of the defensive backs that Iowa has produced to the next level. Desmond King was an under-recruited kid. Obviously, Xavier Wampa last year, we know about his recruitment was very strong. But they've had developmental projects. Minus Tristan Wirfs, they haven't, as of late, really recruited a lot of highly touted offensive linemen, or at least been able to land a lot of highly touted offensive linemen that I can remember. David Cobb was a 4-star. They did really well in 21. There's no question about that. But prior to 21, that's when you start to maybe see a bit of a shift in philosophy. That's why I don't give all the credit to George Barnett, because that 21 class, I don't believe that. I believe that was formulated. I'd have to look back, but timing wise, I think that was before George Barnett was here. So I think Brian deserves credit. I think Tyler Barnes deserves credit, and Kirk deserves credit. When your head coach is an offensive line guru, it should help the cause. Okay, let's see here. Kurt says he heard $1 million and a car. Yeah, I heard that as well. Again, that's just hearsay. I don't know if we heard it. I don't think we're probably ever going to know. Now, maybe that will get leaked by someone else, but I did hear that rumor as well that KADYN Proctor was lured to Iowa with a deal of a seven-figure deal and a car. So whether that's the case or not, I can't tell you, but that is the rumor on the street. Spark CW, is Coach Patterson coming back to the show for Iowa football season? That announcement is still to come, Spark CW. So I'm not going to give it away, but that is stay tuned, because we'll be announcing something in the coming weeks on that. But you know how I feel about Don Patterson, so I'll just say that. Robert says it's possible we run more O-line heavy fronts, and it's possible some of these guys move to tight end. Lots of possibilities. It's possible, Robert. Now, keep in mind, it's easier to move a tight end to the O-line than it is to move an offensive lineman to tight end. Footwork is a big part of both positions, but certainly when you're moving to tight end, it changes from an athletic standpoint. I don't know that, I haven't seen Cannon Leonard in person. I don't see either. Trevor Lauck is not a future tight end, but you never know. Some of these guys could also switch to the defensive side of the ball. But you're right. You're going to see more O-line heavy fronts. I think that's clear. Dale says, "Let's go Hawks." Good to see you here, Dale. I've been on here for an hour and 30 minutes. Feels like more. Blake says, would you take Oregon along with USC and UCLA? I mentioned that earlier. The answer to that question is yes. I think you do want Oregon if that's the case, and maybe a Washington. If you can grab two teams from the North. I mean, do you want Oregon State? Probably not. But if you want two teams from the North, maybe you're looking at Washington. I don't know who else besides Oregon. Maybe Washington State, but you certainly would prefer Oregon and Washington. Dean, good to see you here. Dean says, your thoughts on USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten. I mentioned that earlier, but I just haven't had time to really think about it. I do believe that you're probably going to see a scenario where more teams are added. I think that's likely, whether it be teams from the Pac-12, teams from the ACC. All bets are off. I mean, the Big 12, who knows? I don't think Iowa State's probably on the Big Ten's radar right now, but I don't think we're done. But I certainly think it helps the Big Ten Conference to some extent compete with the SEC. I don't think it evens the playing field, but it does help. It moves the needle a bit. Hair Trigger 83 says, has Spencer made a jump? Well, Tony Racioppi says he has. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not going to base that one. Everybody's freaking out on Twitter because Spencer was seen at the Manning Passing Academy throwing a 70-yard bomb down the field with no rush, no defenders on the field. I don't care about that. I want to see it in action. I think people get way too caught up in that type of thing. We all knew he had a big arm. I've been saying that for a long time, that he's got a nice deep ball. So we'll see what happens, but certainly Tony Racioppi would have you believe that he's made a jump. John says Minnesota made a huge jump running the ball with mostly size. I think Ferentz noticed if we could simply run like Minnesota with our defense, we would be tough for anyone to handle. Erica brings up Arlen Bruce's potential, and he may get a shot at returning being a return specialist with Keegan Johnson, Charlie Jones moving on. Joe is here. Good to see you, Joe. So John Nestor committed to the Iowa football class, and I'm just putting the pieces together myself, John. This is John Nestor, 2023 commit, John Nestor's father. So good to see you here, John. Glad you're enjoying the show and you're a part of it. Culbertson Clan is here as well. Riley is here. Michael O'Connor, your excitement has you frazzled. You called Proctor's choice, though. Way to go. I'm happy to be right this time. If I had picked Alabama, I would have been happy to be wrong, but I'm glad I got this one right. Tipsy says, I'm sure they all get their shots in the practice field that we never get to see. I'm assuming you're talking about the quarterback position. I sure hope they are getting an equal shot on the practice field. I was not real encouraged by the lack of equal snaps during this open spring practice this past spring, but you're right. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Do want to say before we move on or continue in the chat and answer your questions, the line is open right now, 515-635-1601. Want to let you know that Randy Engel down at Under the Kitchen in Mitchellville is doing tremendous artwork. If you haven't already checked out his Facebook page, tremendous stuff. He's got deals with these current athletes, former athletes, and he's got great artwork for sale. Check him out. Under the Kitchen on Facebook. Visit him. You don't have to have a Facebook account to visit this Facebook page. Under the Kitchen on Facebook for more details on purchasing this great Hawkeye art. Also, Ascent Nutrition, I've talked about them. Use the code Hawkeyes to receive 10% off your order. There's links in the description below, but visit goascentnutrition.com. They've got pine pollen, which is good for your overall health. They've got organic coffee. They've got algae oil DHA, which helps your overall mental clarity throughout the day. Great stuff. And again, use the code Hawkeyes to receive 10% off your order. This company is actually owned by University of Iowa graduate Lance Shuttler, so you're supporting a fellow Hawkeye. Again, that's goascentnutrition.com. Appreciate Lance Shuttler and Ascent Nutrition for sponsoring this show. Italica says, will Spencer win games or will the defense? Well, they're not. As I said before, if the offense doesn't improve, you're not going to have a scenario where you win 10 regular season games. I'm not a betting man. I will never be a betting man, but I can guarantee you if that offense is 123rd in the country, they ain't winning 10 regular season games. That's just not happening. The schedule is much different this year. Speaking of Randy Engel, he is in our chat. Crazy day. Proctor commitment. Now USC and UCLA coming to the Big Ten. Crazy day. Absolutely. All right. Steve Cashman here. Day one left tackle. Good question, Steve. Will he be the left tackle from day one? That's tough. I mean, if the thing is, the guys they have playing right now are young. I know there's a lot of positivity around Mason Richmond and his development, but yeah, I mean, if Mason Richmond ends up developing, what do you do with Mason Richmond? Now, right tackle's been maybe even bigger of a struggle. Now, Jack Plum will move on, so maybe you can move Richmond to right, or maybe they like Proctor at right. That's a good question. But with Plum gone this year, I think there's your opening. Proctor will replace Plum. Now, maybe they'll shift these guys around, but no, I do believe he'll start from day one, whether it be along the right side or the left. Breyer is here as well. Good to see you, Breyer. Jacob, will Marco be too short compared to the size of the O-line in a few years? Well, Marco's 6'3". Am I right on that? 6'2". Oh, it's got another year. Maybe it grows another inch. I'm not too concerned about that, Jacob. Iowa's had plenty of size along that offensive line, at quarterback, and we haven't really seen that pay dividends. So I think having a guy who can be mobile, I mean, look at Kyler Murray, look at Russell Wilson. Those guys aren't big. Russell Wilson's not real short, but certainly Kyler Murray is. I think they'll be okay. 6'2" is not real short. It's shorter than 6'5", but that's sort of the modern day quarterback. You're going to have less and less guys over 6'3". Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's the real MVP. How you doing?
Oh, you've not been in the chat. Did you just log on?
Yeah, I've been online, and apparently everything's happening today.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that nice that when it rains, it pours?
Yeah, I know. The NBA world's on fire. The college football world's on fire. I mean, this is insane.
Yeah, I haven't found. I haven't really researched much as it relates to the NBA. I know that I'm a big Mavs fan, and I'm not real positive right now about Jalen Brunson. Has he met with the Mavs yet? Is that what you're referring to?
No. Kevin Durant has requested a trade.
Has he really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, His top two teams are the Heat and Sun.
Interesting. Well, the sports world is blowing up. What do you think about first of all, what do you think about the Proctor news?
I'm happy for Iowa. Congratulations on getting him. I am also happy as an SEC fan that he's not going to Alabama.
I'm with you.
So honestly, I think when Alabama loses a 5-star prospect, the rest of the college football world wins.
Yeah. Well, you're right. As a Kentucky fan, you should be real happy.
I am happy. Well, I mean, Georgia fans are happy today. Texas A&M fans are happy. Iowa fans are happy.
Now, I will say this. You're a Kentucky fan. Let me just make you aware of this, and this applies to all the Iowa fans who are on this show. Keep this in mind. Iowa had a big recruiting weekend this past week, and that was actually what the podcast I was in the middle of recording when this news broke was all about. But just so you're aware, Durrell MVP and everybody else who's on here, one of Iowa's big targets from this past weekend is Kendrick Gilbert. You probably know that name. Strong side defensive end, 4-star recruit from Indianapolis. He is down to 4 schools: Iowa, LSU, Purdue, and Kentucky. So we'll see when that announcement comes. He was wanted by just about everybody as well. Had offers from Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Cincinnati, Minnesota. Kentucky actually going up against Iowa on several of these guys. But that's the one.
Well, we need a few wins. We need a few of them.
Kendrick Gilbert is the one that has Iowa and Kentucky in his Final Four.
Yeah, well, Kentucky, for telling you how bad we are, we're currently ranked 53rd in the 2023 recruiting class. So we're behind prestigious schools like Georgia Tech and Illinois currently. So we're in big trouble.
Yeah,
we need help.
If anybody missed this, Trevor Boer, who was on campus this past weekend in Iowa City, he defensive tackle from Missouri. He had offers from Iowa, Kentucky, Texas A&M, Iowa State. He committed to Iowa State today. So there's another miss for both Kentucky and Iowa. But he didn't take an official visit to Kentucky. He did take one to Iowa.
Dang, that's tough. Iowa moved up to 15. They fell all the way back to 21st. So that one recruit is a big game changer for Iowa.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm almost surprised it wasn't a bigger jump. But again, the rankings don't really mean much to me. When you look at what Iowa's done from a rankings perspective in past classes, it's not like Iowa needs high rankings to develop these guys. But now the fact that now they're starting to develop consistent, or it's starting to bring in consistently high recruiting classes. So I would have to think that's
need to do what we do at Kentucky, and that's not get all the 5 stars or even get some 4 stars, a lot of 3 stars, develop those 3 stars into 5 stars. That's what Iowa needs to do.
Well, isn't that what Iowa does though? I mean,
yeah, but they can take that leap and be ahead of Wisconsin. They shouldn't be behind Wisconsin. They should be ahead of them.
Well, I mean, Wisconsin does it really well too.
Well, yeah, but if Wisconsin does it well, but the thing with Wisconsin and Iowa is whoever gets a good solid QB will be the eventual front runner in that race. But with Iowa's momentum recently, because this Caden Proctor, you do realize he's the best guy Iowa's ever recruited to your school.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge. That should be a momentum building occasion for Iowa.
And these are the moments where these are the moments that make you realize, hey, football recruiting is more significant than basketball recruiting. Because
absolutely.
Even though there's less players in basketball and one guy you can argue make more of an impact, NBA guys can jump after 1 year in the league. College football guys have to stick here for 3 years. So that's why I would argue that major recruiting wins like this one are actually more significant than college basketball recruiting wins.
Oh, absolutely. And hopefully he's the type of person that he can bring a few other players to the school of Iowa as well. Because his rating, is 0.9952.
Say it again.
His rating is 0.9952. He's almost perfect, which is incredible.
Yeah.
10th best player in his class.
Well,
I mean, that's.
What are you looking? What are you looking at?
I was on
You're on 247.
I'm on 24/7.
Yeah. What's Rivals got him at?
I'll check there in a moment.
Because I believe Rivals has got him maybe top 5, top 6. Well, you're checking that up. I'm gonna be right back.
Okay, guys, you got to make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Let's try to get this from the Hawkeye of the Storm to 2,000 subscribers on this huge Iowa win.
All right. What did I miss, Drill MVP? Did you take over the channel?
Yeah, I told him to hit the like and subscribe button. That way
Okay.
we can get you to 2,000 subscribers.
Hey, did you start your own channel yet, Drill MVP? Weren't you going to do that?
I don't know if I'm going to. I don't have a real setup or anything planned, but I could. But I mean,
Okay.
I just don't know yet. Let's see.
Well, Bradley Gibson says that he's 14th. That doesn't seem right.
Yes, he's 14th.
14th in Rivals? Okay. Well,
Yes.
I'm off then. He's moved down a little bit because I think at one point he was top 5, top 6.
Yeah, they have. It seems like their ratings change on a, I don't know, weekly or daily basis. But I see people moving up and moving down all the time.
I will
Like-
say this for anybody who's curious. He is 31 the on 3. That's what I looked at. The on 3 consensus is 5 in the country. And yet on 3 has him at 31. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. How can you be consensus number? I'm assuming that's like a combination of all the major sites, right?
I would assume so.
So how can you be number 5 in the collective ranking, and yet you're 31 in on 3, you're 14 in Rivals, and you're 10 in 247? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Maybe it's for the same reason that USC and UCLA decided to go to the Big Ten.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
They got a lot of traveling they're going to have to do, and they're
Well,
going to take a lot of L's.
You do realize though that like Oklahoma is going to be traveling to Florida. I mean, that's not a short journey either. I mean, these are
Yeah, but USC every week is going to have to go to like Ohio State. Then they could go back home, and then they could go back out to Michigan State.
well, that's assuming that we're not going to get more movement. That's assuming that, you know.
Yeah, but you can't change geography unless you take the entire Big Ten and move it like 4,000 miles west.
No,
It's going to be a long travel.
when I'm saying Drill MVP is there may be more schools from the West Coast that join the Big Ten.
Well, I'm shocked Oregon wasn't on there.
Well, they
I
might-
could have sworn it would have been USC Oregon.
Maybe they still will be.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird they didn't announce it today. They went with UCLA, USC, because if you had Oregon, I think the Pac-12 would be over as a conference. Like, they have nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Oregon, maybe I mentioned Washington earlier in the show, would not be surprised if those two schools end up
Washington as
joining.
well. Do you think that there could be some, like, scraps combining, like the some of them go over to the Big 12 possibly, just the leftovers like Arizona State, Arizona, and those types of schools?
Boy, I don't know. That's such a projection. I've seen people that are predicting how the conferences are going to shake out, and I just don't know. I mean, the idea of just 2 mega conferences seems so far down the road, and it is, because like even this change, the report was that it's not going to happen until at least 2024. And as you and I both know, Drill MVP, college football takes forever with everything, right? We make schedules that are 5 years out. But my point is, I mean, we're going to have, I think that's where things are headed. You're going to have 2 super conferences, but that may not happen for 8 years or more. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, I'm going to throw a really obscure reference. Do you watch soccer?
No.
Okay, so in soccer, because of the pandemic, they tried creating this thing called the Super League.
Okay.
And it was the 20 best schools in soccer, okay, the biggest brands and all that. And they were going to combine and separate into their own league away from the Premier League, which is the main body of the top league. Is there a certain conference that reminds you of what they're trying to do? Getting the biggest brands with the best schools?
The SEC.
Exactly. I think that's where we're headed. I think the SEC is eventually just going to be so good it's just going to separate away from the rest of college football.
Well, that doesn't really fit in with what happened today, though. I mean,
well,
USC and
other
UCLA,
than the Big Ten,
the Big Ten's
no
trying
one's even
desperately to
close.
survive and be able to stick competitively with the SEC, and this is the best move they could have made right now. Now, this is how I would say. I think theoretically, I'll tell you this without even really examining it deeper. I think the one way that you could say right now that the Big Ten is on the same playing field with the SEC, they add USC and UCLA. I think if you added Oregon and Notre Dame, you're competitively close to even. And I know
but then you're getting to the point where it's almost going to be like an NFL type of thing, where you got the AFC versus the NFC.
Well, isn't that what
I mean,
we're
at
headed
that
to?
point, what point would the ACC even exist for? I mean,
well, but I'm just saying, isn't that what we're heading for eventually? I mean,
I mean, I think we're going toward this NFL route anyway.
You're
but
saying
it's not something I'm looking forward to.
You're saying the ACC, the Pac-12 are eventually just, and the Big 12 are basically just going to end up separating into two conferences or one conference.
I think the Big Ten and the SEC is going to be so much better every possible way from the rest of the three that they're not going to matter in any meaningful way. They're going to be like the group of five if that were to happen. I mean, if you have a 4-team playoff, I could legit see every single team being from just the SEC and the Big Ten if you have Notre Dame, Oregon, USC in there for years.
I agree.
And I mean, other than Clemson, who's going to challenge it?
Well, if I'm teams like Kentucky and well, you're not going to like me saying this, Drill MVP, but if I'm teams like Kentucky and Vanderbilt, I'm very happy I still have a home.
Yeah, I know. Hey, listen, we've got basketball, and that's the reason Kansas is still in the Big 12.
Yeah, but Duke. But if we're talking about the theory of these conferences eventually just going away, like Duke and North Carolina are going to have to find homes.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's why they're starting to invest in their football program some.
As will Kansas.
I mean, Duke. Oh yeah, Duke in recruiting in 2023, they're top 25. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they're 23 in the country. Duke. Yeah. So they know the way it's going. But Corey, that's all I got for you today. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Let's try to get Corey to 2,000 subscribers by when? End of July?
Are we not at
2,000? College football season?
Wait. Are we not at 2,000 subscribers?
I don't think so.
Are you serious right now? Oh, we're 19.
No, you're at 1,908.
You think it's going to take me to the end of July? Did you say the end of July?
I meant end of June.
Okay.
End of June.
Well, that's tonight. So we just need 10 subscribers. So of the 150 people who are on here right now, if you are unsubscribed, please subscribe. We just need 20 subscribers over the next 10 hours.
You plan on doing anything to celebrate 2,000?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about it. Sure, I can figure something up. Yeah. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this live show to happen today, so I'm already a bit frazzled. But yeah, we'll figure something out.
Well, congrats, Corey.
Appreciate it, sir. Appreciate the call. The one and only Drill MVP calling in. Always appreciate his phone calls and his perspective, even though he's a Kentucky fan. All right, let me see if I can find Cole. Cole has a source. He says one of his sources is telling that USC and UCLA are just the tip of the iceberg with Big Ten expansion. Stanford, Oregon, Kansas, Washington, and TCU were the other schools mentioned. So the Oregon and Washington, if true, the Oregon and Washington moves don't surprise me. Stanford, what does Stanford bring? I mean, obviously excellent academic reputation, but what do they really bring? They have had relevant years, but the last few years have not been great. And certainly basketball hasn't been great. Kansas is a kind of like Duke, North Carolina. You're getting, it's more extreme than Duke and North Carolina. Kansas is the epitome of blue blood in college basketball, but the epitome of garbage in college football. So this is going to be a discussion we're going to continue to have for the months and years to come. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
This is Austin from Des Moines.
Hey, Austin.
I was just curious as to what you think the impacts that KP is going to bring in terms of recruiting other O-linemen, not necessarily in that class, but in the class or two after.
Well, first, let me just establish this. That's a good question. But I do think that there's a good chance, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I think there's a good chance that they may not be done for that 23 class. I think they got a good shot at landing Logan Howland. That's the first thing. But you're right. I think more of the implications are going to be moving forward. I don't think it's just Proctor. I think it's what they've done on the recruiting trail for 3 years now. They didn't do great at that position in 22, but talk about that 21 class with David Cobb and Colby and Mislinski and Dunker. Some of these guys haven't played yet, but higher touted kids. Sounds to me like George Barnett is really been a blessing to this coaching staff in the recruiting trail. So, yeah, the sky's the limit right now. I mean, they did it in state. Now the question is, can they land some of these higher touted kids from outside the state? They did it with Lauk, and if you can carry that over, that will be significant. Sound like you're going into a. Are you going into a train tunnel?
No, I'm out on the outskirts of town here and don't always get the best reception. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I just want to make sure you're okay. It sounded like maybe you were on the run from the authorities or something.
No, I was just curious because I know that I feel like the class after the worst class, or the couple classes after, kind of suffered when kids saw they may not get the opportunity to play as soon as they thought they would. I would assume, or I hope, that KP gets to play as a freshman, but I didn't know if you thought that might sway some kids to think, oh, maybe I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I think Proctor will. I will be shocked if Proctor does not play immediately. I maybe he won't start from day one. I think he will start from day one, but I think by the end of the season he absolutely will be starting. And remember, they do have a 4-star commit for 24 as well, Cody Fox, who's projected as more of an inside guy, and he's an in-state kid. But no, I mean, it doesn't that whole idea that Iowa's not going to play guys who are young, I don't think it doesn't seem to be affecting them right now, and I wouldn't project that would affect them moving forward. But they are doing so much work at that position in 23 that there's less pressure for 24.
Sure.
Anything else, sir?
All right, well, I've all the work you do. I'm going to hang up now and listen, all right?
Appreciate it, sir. Have a great day. It didn't sound like he was down in a deep well or a tunnel or something? I mean, I appreciate his call, but I just want to make sure he was okay. Jennifer, thank you for this. The Jennifer says, love the show. Doing an amazing job. Go Hawks. Thank you for that. And Jennifer, I try. But I do hope that you tell your friends, tell your fellow Hawkeyes about the show so we can grow this show. I'd love to get to 2,000 by the end. Wouldn't that be great if we get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of today? So since I said that, 4 people have subscribed to the channel. So we're at 1,984 subscribers. All right. 1,984 subscribers. Let me put this up here. If you have friends who are not subscribed, please tell them about the show. All right. Helps the show to grow. Once we get to 2,000 subscribers, I will do something special on the channel. And that just moved. So we're getting up there, folks. 1,986 subscribers. Thank you to everybody who is here. The line is back open. The number to call is 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. We're talking Caden Proctor and his commitment to Iowa football. We're talking expansion. We're talking USC, UCLA, all kinds of stuff. This is very much an impromptu show. And so we're just trying to make it through and give you the best content we possibly can. Hugo Main says, if I dance and sing to Rick Astley again, I'll get to 2,000. Then you can unsubscribe. Now, unsubscribing and resubscribing, Hugo Main, doesn't do me any good. If you want to open a bunch of new accounts and subscribe with those new accounts, that's up to you. But you got my Rick Astley impersonation for the day. Whoever it was that called in with Rick Astley earlier, I appreciate that. Nolan says, why do all these West Coast schools want to join the Big Ten and leave the Pac-12? Well, the Pac-12 is right now not in a great position to be able to compete with the SEC as far as power. The Big Ten is the closest thing to the SEC, even though there's a gap right now, especially when you consider Oklahoma and Texas being a part of the SEC. But the Big Ten is the closest you have, and I think the Big Ten has the most power of any other conference. So it's going to be the rich keep getting richer in college football, and the Big Ten and the SEC. The Big Ten is just trying to Right now, the SEC is king. The Big 10 is just trying to stay competitive with that conference because, as we've been talking about, the era of the super conferences is here, and I don't think it's going anywhere. Especially, and we know that the Oklahoma and Texas moves started that, but I think that's just the beginning. I think we're going to see a lot more. I don't think USC, UCLA, that's not the end of things. The Big 10 is going to be making more moves. I wouldn't be surprised to see the SEC try to make moves. Will Clemson and Florida State, will they eventually join the SEC? From a geographic standpoint, those moves make sense. The problem with the Big 10 as far as regions is they don't have a ton of options within the region that can really help them move the needle. The one that they have that they would love to get is Notre Dame. But the Big Ten's been trying to get Notre Dame to join the Big 10 for years, and it hasn't happened. The Big 10, Notre Dame wants to stay independent. So what other options are there without going outside the region? They're obviously okay with going outside the region. You got schools in New Jersey and you got schools in California. So they don't really care about regions right now. That's not a priority. So I guess they're all in play. If I'm the Big 10, I'm calling Clemson, I'm calling Florida State, I'm calling Miami. That would be the fear for me. If I'm the Big 10, comparing the Big 10 to the SEC, I'm afraid of the SEC getting Clemson, Miami, and Florida State. You get those three schools, boy, it's going to be tough. And Florida State hasn't been good for several years in football, but Miami's been recruiting really well. We know what Clemson is. That would make it almost impossible. There'd be almost no way, even if you could get an Oregon and a Notre Dame. I mean, who else are you going to get that helps you compete with those powers? I mean, maybe, boy, I don't know. Who else is on the board at that point? That's not already in the SEC or the Big 10. That's a tough one. Great topic. But I don't think the point is we're not done with expansion. Paul says he could see Colorado joining the Big 10. Maybe, but Paul, I don't think it moves the needle. I mean, it just doesn't move the needle. What does Colorado, where does Colorado move the needle? At least with Kansas, yeah, you have a dumpster fire on the football field, but you actually have an elite basketball program. But Colorado, I just don't know how that moves the needle. He also asks, does Proctor start as soon as he gets to campus? I think the answer to that question is a resounding yes. I would be very surprised if he does not. Joseph says, who sends more to the NFL, Kentucky or Iowa? I would guess Iowa. I was a little surprised by the comment from Drill MVP, but I would guess Iowa. Blake Morris says, why doesn't Iowa recruit dual threat quarterbacks? They do, Blake. Peyton Manziel was a dual threat. Joey Labus, you could argue, is somewhat dual threat. Marco Lainez is a dual threat. They're not going to run spread. They're not going to run triple option. So the bottom line is they've just had guys that haven't necessarily worked out. They're dual threat guys. They just haven't worked out here. I think Marco Lainez will work out. That's my projection, but we'll see. K-Max says, how is UCLA and USC going to play at 9 a.m. their time? That's a great question. Charles says, Brad Banks was shorter than Lainez, maybe a little bit. Certainly it wasn't a problem. I think Brad was maybe 6 foot, so maybe 2 inches. Maybe Marco's got 2 inches on Brad. Bradley Gibson says the Big Ten has no interest in Iowa State, and they shouldn't. Is Kendrick Gilbert going to commit to Iowa? Maybe. He's in their top 4. He just came off a visit to Iowa. Certainly that's one to follow. I think Kenneth Merriweather is one to follow. I feel good about Iowa's chances there. I feel good about Iowa's chances with Asa Newsom. I feel good about Iowa's chances with Logan Howland. And then you got a lot of dark horses. Could you grab a Zach Ortworth or a George Burhan? They need help at tight end. Could you grab a Jordan Allen from Kansas City? That would help. But yeah, right now I think tight end and wide receiver is probably the biggest focus for that class. Who knows? We'll see what the Proctor commitment does for momentum this week. Jacob says, will Marco be too short? We already addressed that question. No, I don't think he will be. Hugo says, Brian Ferentz said he does not want a dual threat. Makes no sense. Here's the deal. I think, I've talked to a lot of people in response to that comment, Hugo Main, that comment from Brian Ferentz about, he was asked, do you want a Brad Banks type stat line for your quarterback? And I think I'm going to give Brian the benefit of the doubt that he said that to reinforce what he has currently on this roster. He understands that he does not have a Brad Banks in this roster. So you're kind of putting your own foot in your mouth if you say, yeah, we want that type of a stat line, and yet we're going to play Spencer Petras. I would guess that once Marco Lainez is here, once Petras has moved along, I would guess that he would not utter what he uttered back in the spring. I would guess that he would endorse, yeah, we want to be able to have a quarterback that can run, because it was a silly comment to make, but I think it's the lesser of the potentially dangerous remarks, if that makes sense. I don't know that that's how Brian really feels, but we'll have to wait and see. I think they believe right now that Spencer Petras is their best option. Lucas, good to see you here, sir. Excited to have Proctor on board. Jeff says, I've heard on other podcasts that our transfer portal tight end is a very good blocker. May see some 3 tight end sets. Yeah, the Iowas went away from the 3 tight end sets much more recently than they had maybe 10 years ago. They were running a lot more when you had the guy, you had the likes of, even before the Hawkinson Fant era, they ran a lot more 3 tight end sets back in the early 2010s, late 2000s. So maybe we see a return of that. I'd like to see less fullback in Iowa's offense. But yeah, maybe. The problem, Jeff, with doing that, well, I shouldn't say the problem with doing that necessarily, but I do wonder about depth of that position, because they have nobody behind those 3 that has any game experience. In fact, Stylianos has never played a game at the Power 5 level. So I've heard good things about him as well. He was wanted by several Power 5 schools from Lafayette University, but yeah, I think we'll see him at times. But, the problem is you start running into injuries, then you have to completely abandon the 3 tight end set because they have nobody behind those 3. Now, maybe a Stringa or Vanderbush will develop, but boy, that's quick because neither of those guys enrolled early. Jeff says Oklahoma State, Houston to the Pac-12, perhaps. That's a great question. Again, I just don't know. I mean, the Pac-12 without USC and UCLA are, what's the difference between them and the Big 12? They'd maybe have a better top dog in Oregon if Oregon stays, but the Big 12 actually, with Houston being what they are right now, and BYU and Cincinnati, I mean, I think that the Pac-12 might be better, Jeff, quite frankly. I mean, we'll see. Blake brings up the LA market. Certainly. The LA market would possibly open up some new recruiting grounds for Iowa. Paul says, do you feel like Logan Howland is a lock? I wouldn't say a lock, but I feel good about his recruitment. I'll just say that. Would not be shocked to see him commit. But he's got a Final Four of Iowa, Oklahoma, Miami, and Michigan. Took visits to all 4, official visits to all 4. So I think we'll see a commitment out of him, but we'll see. I can't guarantee it. Randy says Stanford brings a big, ugly tree mascot and academics. Good point. Michael, Corey said garbage. Tell us how you really feel. Did I say garbage? What did I say garbage for? Bradley says, go Hawks. This is awesome for the Hawkeyes. Next, Tristan Wirfs. Robert, I like this question. Help me promote my own stuff a little bit here. Now I'm curious which Iowa basketball player you are going to interview today. It's a good question. I actually had, I've got Philip Rebracha coming on. I'll just say that. I've got Philip Rebracha on a future show. Don't know when that will be released yet, but the show that will be released later today, if I have the stamina to get it edited and posted, will be an exclusive interview with Iowa 2024 commit Cooper Koch. So stay tuned for that. Should be a great show. And now I'll have this news to re-record material because I had went through a lot of information. Now I have to go back and do it all over. So that's okay because it's good news from KADYN Proctor. Bradley asked, did I see the highlight from Petras at the Manning Passing Academy, 70-yard bomb? I did, but there was no pass rush, Bradley, no defense. He's got a big arm. I've never doubted that. He's got a good deep ball, but I know a lot of people were freaking out about it. I was a bit it didn't really do much for me. I'll just say that. I hope it's a sign of some confidence, maybe. He looks maybe trimmed down a bit, but we'll have to wait and see how it translates once we get to the Big Ten. Paul says, will Iowa have a top 15 class when it comes to signing day? I think they'll be pretty close because I think they're going to add some of these kids that were here this past weekend, and they need to go get receivers somewhere. So if they can do that, yeah, I think they got a good chance of being top 15. Having a 5-star helps, right? And it's going to help perception, help you in the rankings. And we can say rankings don't matter all we want, but they do matter from an outside perception standpoint. So, yeah, I mean, I think Iowa's got a shot at that. Right now, they're on the cusp, according to 247 Sports. John says, I haven't been this excited about Hawkeye recruiting since we got Deuce Hogan. That did not end very well. Let's hope this does. Steve says, where does Iowa State end up? They're in the Big 12. You would have you would still have the Iowa State rivalry. Steve, I've talked about that in the past. At one point last year, I had stated that I wouldn't have minded Iowa State joining the Big 10. And frankly, I'd stand by that. I know some people really hate that idea. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Iowa State. Now, they're not going to move the needle. They're not going to move the needle as it relates to the SEC, but it's a good football program right now, and it's an ascending basketball program. But, they may not have a home. They may end up playing second, third fiddle to the other super conferences, in which are right now the SEC and it looks like the Big 10. But wouldn't be surprised to see them stay in the Big 12 and again, kind of end up like a group of 5, like our caller alluded to earlier. I'm not going to read your name, DB. I'm going to call you DBN. When Ferentz retires, who will take his jobs? I think will take his job. Excuse me, man. I think I need some water. I think LeVar Woods. So I have a harder time answering the question of who do I think will take the job. I'd rather answer the question, who do I think should take the job? I've said this before, depending on when Kirk retires, if it's the next couple of years, I would make every attempt to get Bob Stoops to give you 5 or 6 years. If he doesn't want the job, then I would give Phil Parker every opportunity, even though Phil is older as well. I would say, hey, you want 5 or 6 years here. If he says no, then I would probably look at Brett Bielema, Mark Stoops. LeVar Woods, I struggle with. I like LeVar Woods, but he's never called plays before. And it's just very rare for a head coach, for a guy to be named a Power 5 head coach if he's never been a coordinator. He's a special teams coordinator, but he's never called plays. So I don't know. Good question. And I just don't know when that'll happen. Okay, let's check in on the subscriber count. Jennifer says we're getting close to 2,000. We're at 1,190. Excuse me, 1,990. Excuse me. I'm selling myself short here. We need 10 subscribers, folks, to get to 2,000 today. And if we get to 2,000, I promise I will do something to celebrate, whether it be I don't know. I'll have to brainstorm how to celebrate the 2,000 subscribers. Got to get there first. I'd love to get there before July. And, of course, this is the last day of July. So please subscribe to the channel. We're at 1,191. Somebody just subscribed. Thank you to whoever did that. But please subscribe and hit the like button as well. So thank you, Jennifer, for a reminder there. Nolan says, do you think anyone from the Big Ten will leave once these teams start to join? I doubt it. I'm not sure why they would, unless the SEC can somehow pry Ohio State away or Michigan. I think the SEC would love to do that, but I don't know why a school would just voluntarily leave unless it's for the SEC. Lucas says, with the expansion news, it makes sense that the Iowa State series hasn't been contracted past 2025. What if the Big Ten told them not to schedule until after all the expansion moves? No, valid point. Yeah, I mean, it'd be hard to defend keeping that game on the schedule if you have an Iowa State team that's perceived to be a group of 5 school that you just couldn't keep it on the schedule at that point, unless you just added another game in. If you just added another Power 5 game in there, but I doubt Iowa would do that. But we're looking at a totally different landscape in college football. So how we're perceiving Iowa State and these different teams now may be completely different in 3 or 4 years. Joseph says that Iowa State ends up in the Missouri Valley Conference with Nebraska. I like that comment. Outlaw Josie Wells, good to see you here, sir. Proctor's commit puts a bit of salve in the wound left by the 2014 4-star lineman recruit Ross Pierschbacher when he jumped to the Crimson Tide. That hurt. Well, That was 8 years ago, Outlaw Josue Wales, and I'd much rather have Proctor than Pierce Bacher. So this is a podcast. Paul, thank you for this compliment. So I'm trying to give people a voice to be able to call in and do chat and give you folks regular content throughout the entire year, including during the off season. So thank you for finding the show, Paul. And just so everybody's aware, we got 165 people on right now. We are at 1,100, or excuse me, I can't even read my own numbers right now. 1,994 subscribers. We need 6 subscribers. We got 160 people on here. I'm going to assume that all 160 of you are subscribed. If you're not, what are you waiting for? Please help us get to 2,000 subscribers. Austin, what's the shortest flight to UCLA compared to the longest flight to Penn State? That's a great question. Shortest flight, let me read this question. Shortest flight to UCLA compared to the longest flight to Penn State. Well, let's find that out. So the shortest flight to LA from Lincoln, Nebraska. Okay, so flights from LA to Lincoln, Nebraska is about, well, according to this, right around 5 hours. 5 hours, okay? That's LA to Lincoln. Lincoln to State College, which technically Piscataway is. Why don't we do Piscataway? Because Piscataway is further. That's about 5.5. Well, close to 5. So actually about the same, Austin. That's a good question. About the same. But obviously we're talking about those schools having to fly 5+ hours for almost every trip. All right. Blake says he could see Utah going to the Big Ten. Michael says I called Kansas football garbage. Well, are they not garbage? I hate to say that, but that's what they've been. Joseph says we should just have one non-con to start, tune up, and then the rest of the conference should be conference opponents, or the rest of the schedule should be conference opponents. I understand that line of reasoning. Blake says Clemson, Miami, Florida State is a must-get for the Big Ten. The SEC wants them too. I would guarantee you, more, Blake, especially if that's their end goal of making just a mega conference. But yeah, if you're the Big Ten, who cares about regions right now? They've thrown those out the window. Culbertson Clan says a good old line makes an average quarterback look better. Bradley, hopefully the line is better this year. We play more explosive receivers like Bruce and Johnson. That will help Petrus. Well, they're going to have to play Bradley because they don't have any options. Reganey is going to get time, but they have no one else proven right now besides those two. So, or besides those three. Maybe Brody Breck gets some playing time. Maybe Jacob Bostic gets in the mix. Maybe it's Deontay Vines. Who knows? But yeah, somebody's going to have to step up at wide receiver. Jacob says, do you think Proctor will be the greatest Hawkeye ever? That's so, I would say chances are no. Not because I don't think he's going to be great, but with all the great Hawkeyes to ever play at Iowa, I think chances are, I think it's a safer bet to make that no, he's not going to be the greatest ever, but he's the greatest recruit ever from a ranking standpoint. So yeah, sure, let's throw it out there. Why not? Maybe he's got a shot. Bradley says, how about a coaching staff of LeVar Woods, Liddell Betts, and Abdul Hodge? That's a very intriguing coaching staff, Bradley. Absolutely. The Real Hayden says he just woke up. Stupid night shift. Best news to wake up to. I bet you're happy. Reggie, do you think Petrus will end up being the starter this year? Yes, I do believe that. I'm not saying that's what I want or that's what I don't want, but that's what I believe will end up happening. Blake says he wants Matt Entz from North Dakota State to take over for Kirk Ferentz. There's a name. There's a name that would probably be a doable hire. Breyer says, have you heard much about Brody Breck? Not from a football perspective. I know he had his ups and downs during baseball season. He's a heck of a pitcher, as you well know. Struggled in his final start of the year. Well, in this, was it his own? I don't know how many games he started throughout the year, but I know he started in the Big Ten tournament and performed poorly through the one inning that he played. Didn't even make it the one inning. But I don't know. It's tough to balance nowadays, especially. I mean, Danon Hughes did it back in the day, but it's hard to balance baseball and football. I can't imagine. Connor McCaffrey found it hard to do in basketball. So, but yes, you're right. Brody Brecht is a factor. He's going to have an opportunity to prove himself because they're not real deep at that position. Cole says he could see Dave Aranda. Good one as well. Paul, Mark Stoops is another one. Absolutely. I brought his name up in the past. So right now, folks, we're at 1,197 subscribers. So just need 3 more of you to subscribe. 3 more subscriptions, folks. 3. Thank you for everybody being here. I'm going to be here for a couple minutes longer, and then I gotta get some other work done. I feel like I've got to get some fluids in me, and I've got to get some food in me. So last call on the phone lines. If you're bashful, we're easy going. 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601 to take your comments or your questions here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. I will let you know that later on today, you can expect a release of week 197 of Brad's Branded Thoughts, which will feature an exclusive interview with Iowa basketball commit Cooper Koch. That's coming up later today right here on this channel. So if you're not already subscribed, stay tuned because week 197 of the podcast is coming out. It can also be heard. This show will be uploaded on our podcast platform. So if you're not already subscribed to our podcast through Spotify, Apple, Google, Anchor, Amazon, wherever, be sure to do that as well. Every Tuesday, we're live over at a different channel. It's called Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football. It's with the one and only Mark Rogers, the Voice of College Football. We talk Iowa football every hour. All right. Every Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. over at Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. All right. Last couple comments here before we head out. I'm not seeing anybody calling in right now, so that's it's ran its course, I guess. Bradley says, I was hoping the receiver room would have gotten better with Kyler Casper, and yes, he's not signed yet, but he did commit to Oregon. And let's see here. Jeff says longevity plays into greatness in college, and certainly when you have a guy who's only going to be here, I think 3 years, barring some unforeseen injury, he's going to be here 3 years. It's hard to put him in the conversation. But if he plays 3 full years and he's as dominant as we think he can be, sure, why not? Why couldn't he be in the conversation? He's a hometown kid. That's going to help from a legacy standpoint. But he hasn't even gotten here yet. And he's not going to be here for, well, he might be here next spring, but he's not going to play for over a year. So let's just pump the brakes a little bit. I know we're all excited. If you're just joining in, the news from about, it's been 2 hours. Good Lord. The news from 2 hours ago, homegrown offensive tackle Caden Proctor commits to Iowa football. The first 5-star in several years. Now, AJ Epinesa was the 5-star according to 247 Sports, but Caden Proctor, by everything I have seen, the highest rated recruit in Iowa football history. All right, Iowa football history. So how about that? Iowa landing somebody they wouldn't normally be able to land and being able to keep them in the state. Somebody brought up Ross Pierschbacher, talented offensive lineman from Eastern Iowa years ago that ended up going to Alabama. And Iowa finds a way to keep Caden Proctor home. So believe me, this isn't the last we're going to be talking about the Caden Proctor announcement. This will be a continued discussion for the days and weeks to come. The other news today that we're talking about, USC, UCLA planning to leave the Big Ten as early as 2024. The move has not been finalized at the highest levels of power, according to John Wilner, Pac-12 reporter. That's the latest. And again, I've not been on Twitter. I've been on here for 2 hours. So everything seems to break on Twitter. I'm sure once I get off, there'll be new developments that I've missed, but that's the conversation that we're having. Reggie says, do I think that Proctor could win the Heisman? Well, it's pretty tough as an offensive lineman to win the Heisman, Reggie. Do I think that's fair? No. But if there was going to be someone that should have been in the Heisman conversation, shouldn't it have been Tyler Linderbaum? When you talk about a 5-star kid, I mean, regardless if he came here as a 5-star, he was a 5-star when he left. And I don't think he was really ever in the conversation. Culbertson Clan says, I made it to 2000. Not on my end, Culbertson Clan. According to my end, I'm sitting at 1,998. So unless you have some intel into the channel that I don't, well, it does say 2,000. It says 2,000 on one platform. It says 1998 on another. Now it says 1999. So let's get one more. Let me get one more subscriber because I've got my my analytics site telling me that it's 1,999. Okay, so who's going to be the 2,000th subscriber? Fortunately, I won't be able to tell. If you do subscribe and make it 2,000, I won't be able to tell who it is. But I'm going to stay on here until we get 2,000 subscribers. So it may take 10 seconds. It may take 10 minutes, 10 hours, whatever. I'm going to be here. Stay tuned because later on this week, there will be more coverage right here from the Hawkeye the Storm. Plan on releasing segments on the conference realignment that's occurring right now, the discussion about USC and UCLA and how it affects Iowa and the Big Ten. I'm going to revisit the Iowa State topic. Could Iowa State still be a player to join the Big Ten Conference? I know a lot of Iowa fans don't want that, but we are going to talk about it. Plus, more on the KADYN Proctor decision. How will that affect recruiting moving forward? And who else? The podcast that's going to be released later today, I promise we're going to address the other recruits that were on campus this past weekend for official visits. We're going to address those. I'm going to tell you how many of these kids you should expect to commit to Iowa in due time. I think we're nearing commitments from some more of these young individuals, but 17, 18-year-old kids can sometimes be a bit indecisive, and that's okay. It's a recruiting process. These kids have time to decide. Remember, signing day is not till December, so KADYN Proctor is locked in as a Hawkeye from a verbal perspective, but he is not locked in on paper. So we're going to have to wait for him to sign in December. If he doesn't sign in December, I'd be very concerned because he doesn't have to sign in December. He could wait till the regular signing period, but really the early signing period is how young individuals do it nowadays. Brian, subscribe, people. 1,199 or 1,000. Man, how many times have I screwed up that number today? 1,999 subscribers. All right. And I'm not going until this number on my app. Can you see that? It says 1,000. It says 1,999. 1,999. I'm not leaving until we get that number up to 2,000. So again, appreciate everybody being here. Over the last 2.5 hours. Blake, it's actually announced Koch. Now, there are KOCH individuals who are pronounced Cook, but there are also Koches. All right, we did it, folks. 2,000 subscribers. Thank you. Everybody hung in there. 119 people still on. Hung in there for the last however long we've been on here. Thank you, folks, for being here this afternoon. Again, the news today, USC and UCLA planning to leave the Pac-12 for the Big Ten in as early as 2024. It's not yet been finalized, but we expect an announcement upcoming. And KADYN Proctor, 5-star offensive tackle, has announced he is an Iowa Hawkeye. Congratulations to Kevin Perkins, his stepdad, who was on our show earlier in the chat, and everyone else who's been here. Congratulations, you're a Hawkeye. It's time to celebrate, and thank you to everybody who's called in and made this show possible. Congratulations to KADYN Proctor. Subscribe here, hit the like button. Stay tuned. Brada's Branded Thoughts, exclusive interview with Cooper Koch, 2024 commit for Iowa basketball, set to be released later today right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Have a great night.